Hello, and welcome to the Sleepy Explorer. Tonight, we journey to a place where ancient shrines sit quietly beside vending machines that sing, where cherry blossoms drift like dreams through city streets, and where the hush of snowfall on a temple roof can say more than 1,000 words. This is Japan, an island nation steeped in silence and song, tradition and transformation. A place where time doesn't just pass. It lingers, like the scent of incense in a wooden hall, or the last note of a bamboo flute carried by the wind. As you settle in, perhaps already nestled under a warm blanket or sipping something soothing, let this video be a gentle companion for your evening. Whether you drift off midway or stay with us until the final whisper, you're in exactly the right place. And if you find yourself far too intrigued to sleep, well, that's a risk we're willing to take. At least you'll walk away with a few new facts floating in your dreams. If you enjoy our journey tonight, I would be ever so grateful if you gave the video a like and considered subscribing to the channel. It helps keep these relaxing adventures going, and it means the world to me. I'd also love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Whether it's 2 a.m. in Tokyo or just past sunset in San Diego, let us know in the comments. This cozy little community stretches farther than the eye can see. Together, we'll wander through misty cedar forests, tiptoe across tatami mats, and listen for the quiet poetry of the seasons. Japan is a land of balance, a country of stillness and storms, of soft lantern light and sudden festivals, of deep respect for the past and daring dreams for the future. And over the next few chapters, we'll explore its spirit, not through the usual guidebook facts, but through the rhythm of its seasons and the whisper of its traditions. Now, before we begin, just a gentle reminder, while this video is designed to help you unwind and learn a little along the way, it is not a substitute for medical advice or professional treatment. If you're experiencing sleep difficulties, please consider speaking with a qualified healthcare provider. With that said, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's begin our peaceful journey to the heart of Japan. If you were to run your fingers across a map of East Asia and trace the Pacific's edge, you'd find a graceful arc of islands stretching from the icy hush of Hokkaido in the north to the sun-warmed shores of Okinawa in the south. This is Japan, a nation made of 4 main islands and thousands of smaller ones, like a string of emeralds scattered across a sapphire sea. The largest island is Honshu, home to bustling Tokyo and the ancient capital of Kyoto. To the north lies Hokkaido, known for its snow festivals and wild landscapes. South of Honshu, you'll find Shikoku, the smallest of the 4, dotted with pilgrimage temples and quiet coastlines. And further south still is Kyushu, where steaming hot springs meet volcanic peaks and subtropical breezes. Though Japan's borders are defined entirely by sea, what lies within is a world of immense variety. This is a country that stretches over 3,000 kilometres from end to end, covering a wide range of climates and cultures. In the far north, snow blankets forests for months on end, while in the south, hibiscus flowers bloom under an almost tropical sun. And between these poles, 1,000 shades of experience unfold, from the quiet fishing villages of the Noto Peninsula to the dazzling intersections of Tokyo's Shibuya crossing. Despite its compact size, Japan holds multitudes. You could be riding a bullet train at 300 kilometers an hour, gazing out at Mount Fuji wrapped in clouds, and moments later step into a bamboo forest that seems to hum with stillness. There is something deeply cinematic about this place, as if the entire country is composed of scenes waiting to be wandered into. The first impression many visitors have is one of meticulous order and deep calm. The streets are often spotless, as if someone has just swept away the day. Trains glide in and out of stations with the precision of a metronome. Bowing replaces handshakes. And even the vending machines, those curious metallic sentinels that stand on nearly every street corner, offer not only cold drinks, but piping hot cans of coffee, instant soups, and sometimes a small philosophical pause in your day. Then there's the food. Ramen shops with their billowing steam and hissing pots, conveyor belt sushi restaurants where tiny plates swirl like dancers, and izakayas hidden down quiet alleys where lanterns swing gently in the breeze. Food in Japan isn't just nourishment, it's an experience. One that often begins long before the first bite, with the sound of sizzling tempura or the aroma of miso broth drifting through the air like a quiet invitation. The air itself tells stories. On a rainy day in Kyoto, you might hear droplets tapping on wooden eaves, the scent of wet stone mingling with the sharp green of moss. Walk across a tatami mat, and it will sigh beneath your feet. Open a sliding paper door, and feel the breeze whisper in. Even silence here seems full, like it's holding something sacred. A rustle of kimono fabric, the faint chime of wind bells, the slow burn of incense curling through the rafters of an old shrine. These are the background melodies of Japan. But if there is one theme that underpins life here, one rhythm that pulses quietly beneath everything, it is the seasons. Seasonality in Japan is not just a backdrop, it is a way of being. Nature's changes are honoured not only in festivals and foods, but in poetry, architecture, fashion and mood. Cherry blossoms in spring are greeted with joy and a touch of sadness, because everyone knows they'll vanish almost as soon as they arrive. In summer, cicadas fill the air with their high-pitched songs, and fireworks bloom over rivers and bays. Autumn paints the maple leaves red and gold, while winter hushes everything in snowy stillness, revealing the quiet bones of the land. This reverence for change is everywhere. You can see it in the kaiseki meals that are crafted around what's in season, with each dish meant to evoke a moment in time. A plum blossom just starting to open, the sound of rain on new grass, the first snow on a mountain puff. You'll find it in the seasonal wagashi sweets, shaped like hydrangeas in June, or maple leaves in October. Even convenience store snacks change to match the time of year. 1 week you'll find chestnut flavoured treats, and the next, yuzu citrus or sakura mochi. Architecture too follows the seasons. Traditional homes are built to breathe with the weather, their sliding doors and paper screens allowing for flexibility and airflow. In the summer, bamboo blinds are hung to keep the sun at bay, and in the winter, kotatsu tables with their electric warmers offer cosy refuge. Gardens are designed not just for peak bloom, but for how they look in all seasons. How the stones rest under snow, how the moss glows in rain, how the shadows fall in late autumn light. Even the language reflects this awareness. There are countless words in Japanese that describe fleeting natural moments with exquisite specificity. Take komorebi, for instance, the sunlight that filters through leaves, or yugen, the mysterious beauty of the universe that can't quite be explained, or natsukashi, that warm, nostalgic feeling when something reminds you of a gentle memory. These aren't just pretty words. They're windows into how people here experience the world. And then there's the paradox. For all its tradition and nature-rootedness, Japan is also a country of high-speed everything. Its cities pulse with electricity, both literal and metaphorical. Neon signs reflect in puddles, robots greet hotel guests, and trains arrive to the second. You might find a centuries-old temple standing beside a glass skyscraper, or a group of salarymen taking selfies with a mascot character outside a pachinko parlour. This blend of old and new isn't jarring. It feels deliberate, like a layered kimono of culture. One part ancient silk, and one part synthetic fibre, both coexisting peacefully. What's perhaps most fascinating is how this blending doesn't feel like contradiction. It feels like balance. The quiet and the noise, the ritual and the rush. The seasons, slow and subtle, moving steadily through a country always on the move. It creates a kind of harmony that's hard to describe, but easy to feel. Like listening to a flute solo in the middle of a bustling train station and somehow not finding it out of place. And this balance invites observation. Japan teaches you to look more closely, to listen more carefully, to appreciate the soft drama of daily life. A rice bowl placed just so, a folded napkin shaped like a crane, a shopkeeper's bow that carries a whole unspoken story. These are small things, but they are never insignificant. They are the heartbeat of a culture that believes beauty is not in grand declarations, but in the details that most of us forget to notice. Perhaps that's the gift of arriving here, not just discovering a new place, but remembering how to see, how to pause, how to notice the rustle of wind through bamboo or the way morning mist curls around temple roofs. Japan has a way of slowing you down, not with force, but with invitation, like a soft-spoken guide who doesn't need to say much, just gestures gently toward a path and trusts that you'll find something meaningful there. And as we begin this journey, let that be the spirit we carry with us, a sense of quiet wonder, a willingness to listen, and maybe, just maybe, a reminder that even in the most fast-paced corners of the world, there is room for stillness, for seasons, and for something softly sacred. Time in Japan doesn't move in a straight line. It spirals. It curls back on itself like incense smoke, rises like a paper lantern, and hides in plain sight. You can feel it in the polished wood of a shrine gate, worn smooth by centuries of prayer, or in the echo of a temple bell that seems to vibrate through history. To walk through Japan is to walk through time, and if you listen closely, the past often speaks louder than the present. Let's begin a long, long time ago, thousands of years before samurai, skyscrapers or sushi. Back when the Japanese archipelago was still wild and uncarved by roads, its early inhabitants were shaping a life deeply attuned to nature. This was the Jomon period, which began over 15,000 years ago and lasted for millennia. The people of this era lived in harmony with forests, rivers and sea, crafting what is now considered some of the oldest pottery in the world. These pots weren't just for holding soup or water. They were decorated with swirling, flame-like patterns that look almost modern today. There's a tactile kind of poetry in them, as though the makers were leaving fingerprints on eternity. Fast forward a few thousand years, and Japan began to form a more centralized society. By the 4th century, the Yamato clan emerged as a dominant force, and with them came the foundations of the imperial family. Still revered today as the world's oldest continuous monarchy. Picture ancient court nobles gliding across polished floors in layered robes, composing poetry about the moon or cherry blossoms, their lives governed as much by seasonal beauty as political protocol. The capital shifted from Nara to Kyoto, and what followed was a blossoming of culture, particularly during the Heian period, beginning in the 8th century. This was the golden age of classical Japan. Calligraphy, music, and literature flourished within the court. It was here that a noble woman named Murasaki Shikibu penned the tale of Genji, widely considered the first novel in the world. It's a story of love, loss, and political intrigue, written with such sensitivity that even now, over 1,000 years later, Genji still haunts the halls of Japanese literature like a wistful ghost. In this era, the aesthetics of elegance and refinement reigned supreme. Everything from the colour of your robes to the fragrance of your letters was part of an intricate social dance. But while the court was busy with poetry and perfumes, the real world was stirring with a different kind of energy. Out beyond the imperial palaces, local clans and warriors were rising. They were called samurai, servants at first, but soon the ones who would come to rule. These warriors followed a code of honour known as Bushido, the way of the warrior. It emphasized loyalty, discipline, and a calm embrace of death. And while they're often romanticized with top knots and katanas, samurai life was not all jewels at dawn and haiku under cherry trees. It was a complex, often brutal existence filled with strategy, sacrifice, and strict hierarchy. The real turning point came in the 12th century, when a series of power struggles led to the establishment of the first shogunate, a military government headed by a shogun, effectively reducing the emperor to a symbolic figure. This marked the beginning of Japan's feudal era, which would last for centuries. Picture a country dotted with castles, each one a stronghold for a powerful daimyo or feudal lord. Alliances were forged and broken, swords clashed in the shadow of the mountain passes, and political marriages became tools of strategy. Amid all this turbulence, the culture still thrived. Zen Buddhism arrived from China and made a home in the hearts of many, influencing everything from garden design to swordsmanship. It wasn't about lavish temples or grand declarations. It was about simplicity, mindfulness, and direct experience. A single rock placed just so in a raked gravel garden could carry more meaning than an entire painting. A cup of tea, if poured and received with intention, could become a kind of silent prayer. Eventually, the chaos of warring states gave way to unification. By the early 17th century, the Tokugawa shogunate had established peace and stability from its base in Edo, modern-day Tokyo. This period, known as the Edo era, lasted for over 2.5 centuries and is often remembered as a time of isolation and cultural refinement. The government deliberately closed Japan's doors to most of the outside world, limiting contact with foreign nations to a trickle through tightly controlled ports. On the surface, this isolation might seem stifling, but it had curious effects. With the nation sealed, Japan turned inward, and in doing so, cultivated a rich and distinct culture. The arts flourished. Kabuki theatre dazzled audiences with stylized drama. Ukiyo-e woodblock prints captured fleeting moments of everyday life, and haiku poetry distilled the world into just 17 syllables. Townspeople, merchants, and artisans gained cultural influence, and a burgeoning middle class began to leave its mark. But even peace is impermanent. In the mid-19th century, the world came knocking. Specifically, a fleet of American ships led by Commodore Matthew Perry. Their arrival in 1853 forced Japan to open its ports and confront a changing world. What followed was one of the most astonishing transformations in modern history. The Meiji Restoration, beginning in 1868, saw the emperor restored to power and a national drive toward modernization. Trains were laid, factories built, and a Western-style government and education system established seemingly overnight. The samurai class was dissolved, and the traditional top-knot haircut became a symbol of the past. It was an era of rapid change, but also of tension, as Japan sought to become modern without losing itself. This transformation wasn't just economic or political. It reshaped the very soul of the country. Victorian dress mixed with kimono. Gas lamps flickered beside ancient shrines. And throughout it all, the Japanese people showed a remarkable ability to adapt while still holding tight to their cultural roots. The spirit of mono no aware, an awareness of impermanence, permeated the national mood. By the early 20th century, Japan had become a formidable global power, but the path forward was neither simple nor gentle. The decades that followed were marked by military expansion, colonization, and eventually, catastrophic war. The scars of World War II are still present, in memories, in museums, in the silence at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devastation was immense, but so was the resilience. What emerged from the ashes was rebirth as remarkable as it was painful. Japan reinvented itself, this time not as an imperial force, but as a nation of peace, technology, and cultural soft power. Within just a few decades, it became known for precision electronics, pop culture, and an almost mythic work ethic. Skyscrapers rose where rubble once lay. Bullet trains stitched the islands together. Anime, video games, and minimalist design flowed outward, capturing imaginations across the world. And yet, even now, the past walks beside the present. You can find it in the way a tea ceremony is still conducted with centuries-old formality, in how bowing remains not just a greeting, but a language of respect. In festivals where people dress in kimono to dance beside modern train stations. In the seasonal foods served with quiet reverence to timing. Even the architecture blends timelines. Glass towers built beside wooden temples, sliding paper screens hiding behind steel frames. Traditions endure not because they're trapped in amber, but because they evolve while still honouring their essence. The etiquette, the customs, the rituals, they're not relics. They're living, breathing, sometimes bending, but rarely breaking. And through this remarkable balance, Japan continues to honour its history without being imprisoned by it. In a way, the whole country feels like a palimpsest, a manuscript written over and over, each layer still faintly visible beneath the new. The Jomon people are there in the quiet dignity of craftsmanship, the samurai whisper through the discipline and focus of modern life. The court poets linger in cherry blossom viewing parties and reverence for the moon, and the echoes of war remind the world, softly but firmly, of the cost of forgetting. History here isn't confined to textbooks or museums. It's in the everyday. In a festival dance that hasn't changed in centuries. In the curve of a temple roof. In the way people remove their shoes before entering a home. A quiet gesture of respect that reaches back through time. To walk through Japan is not just to move through space. It is to drift across layers of memory, gently unfolding, one petal at a time. And if you walk slowly enough and listen carefully, you just might hear the footsteps of those who came before, not as ghosts, but as companions, still shaping the present with every passing moment. The true rhythm of a country doesn't always beat in its monuments or museums. It pulses in the quiet rituals of daily life, in the words people choose, and in the gestures too subtle to be taught in any guidebook. In Japan, that rhythm is soft but steady, like a distant drum echoing through misty mountains. To understand Japan is to pay attention not just to what is said, but how it is said, and just as importantly, what is left unspoken. The Japanese language itself is a marvel of nuance and delicacy. It's a language shaped by centuries of poetry, politeness, and precision, with multiple layers of meaning often folded into a single phrase. A simple yes might mean, I understand, I'll consider it, or please stop asking, depending on context and tone. And while this can occasionally baffle the uninitiated, it's also what gives the language its gentle complexity. Japanese has 3 writing systems, hiragana, katakana, and kanji, all used together in a beautiful sort of organized chaos. Hiragana flows with soft curves, often used for native Japanese words and grammatical particles. Katakana is sharper, used for foreign terms and emphasis. And kanji, the adopted Chinese characters, are dense with meaning, often with layers that reveal themselves only with time. A single kanji can encapsulate an entire concept, a mood, or even a season. Then there are the words that defy translation, those linguistic gems that express entire philosophies. Take wabi-sabi, for instance. It's not just about rustic charm. It's an appreciation of beauty that is imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. Think of a cracked teacup with a gold-filled seam, or a weathered wooden bench under falling leaves. Wabi-sabi whispers, "This too is beautiful, precisely because it will not last." Or giri, a sense of social obligation and duty that binds relationships together like invisible thread. It's not transactional, not exactly. It's deeper than that. You help your colleague not because you expect something in return, but because it's the right thing to do. You return a favour not out of debt, but because balance matters. Giri is part of the emotional architecture that holds society in place. And there's omotenashi, the spirit of hospitality so embedded in the culture that it often goes unnoticed. Unlike customer service with a smile, omotenashi is about anticipating needs before they're even voiced. It's the way a host might turn your teacup so the most beautiful side faces you. It's in the hand-folded towel offered before a meal, or the careful arrangement of your shoes at the door. It's hospitality without expectation. Generosity given freely, not loudly. In Japan, politeness isn't just good manners. It's an art form. Bowing is a language in itself. A slight nod of the head can mean thank you, I'm sorry, hello, or goodbye, depending on depth and context. There are rules, of course. Deeper bows show greater respect, and there are variations depending on social status, age, and occasion. But the spirit behind it is consistent. Humility, acknowledgement, and care for others. Silence, too, speaks volumes. Where many cultures rush to fill every pause, Japan often finds eloquence in the unsaid. A moment of quiet in conversation might not signal awkwardness, but rather reflection, respect, or space for the other person's thoughts. In meetings, it's common to sit in thoughtful silence before responding, and in casual chats, a well-placed or gentle nod can be as meaningful as an entire paragraph. Subtlety extends to nearly every interaction. Compliments are deflected with modesty. Disagreements are softened with phrases like perhaps or I wonder if. Criticism is often indirect, cloaked in suggestion rather than confrontation. This isn't about being evasive, it's about maintaining harmony, avoiding embarrassment, and recognizing that sometimes kindness lies in what is left unsaid. Harmony, or wei, is one of the pillars of Japanese society. It's the idea that the group functions best when everyone contributes quietly and cooperatively. You'll notice this in schools, where students often clean their classrooms together as a normal part of the day. Or in offices, where desks are shared and hierarchies, though present, are tempered by a spirit of collective effort. This emphasis on the group sometimes surprises visitors from more individualistic cultures. In Japan, decisions are often made with consensus in mind, even if it takes more time. People tend to avoid standing out too much, preferring to blend in, to move with the flow rather than against it. There's even a saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. It's not a threat. It's a reminder that social cohesion is cherished, sometimes above personal expression. Yet, within this collective spirit, there is immense diversity. Each region of Japan has its own identity, its own food, dialect, and character. In Osaka, the people are known for their humour and directness, while those in Kyoto often speak in elegant, nuanced phrases. Even within the same island, accents shift from town to town, and locals can usually guess where someone is from after only a few words. These dialects, or hogan, carry more than just different pronunciations. They reflect history, geography, and personality. In Okinawa, the language once spoken was so distinct, it's now considered its own linguistic branch. In the snowy mountains of Tohoku, speech patterns are famously slow and melodic, shaped by isolation and long winters. These regional voices add texture to the national conversation, like instruments in an orchestra playing variations on the same theme. Community life, too, reveals the heart of Japan. Step into a neighbourhood sento or public bath, and you'll find a space that's part spa, part social hub. Here, people of all ages and backgrounds bathe together, not just to get clean, but to relax, unwind, and connect. The act of bathing in public may seem odd to some, but in Japan, it's a centuries-old tradition that reflects values of equality, humility, and shared experience. Then there's the annual ritual of hanami, cherry blossom viewing. Every spring, when the sakura trees bloom in soft pink clouds, families, friends, and co-workers gather beneath them for picnics. Blue tarps are spread, bento boxes unwrapped, sake shared. It's noisy, joyful, and deeply poetic. For just a few days, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. People pause, laugh, eat, and remember, quietly or loudly, that life, like the blossoms, is fleeting and precious. Even festivals, with their vibrant costumes and booming drums, carry undercurrents of community connection. Neighbours come together to pull floats, dance in the streets, and cook enormous batches of food for anyone who passes by. These are not just parties, they're declarations of identity, gratitude, and local pride. They connect the present to the past and the individual to the village. This layered sense of identity, both local and national, is one of Japan's quiet strengths. There is pride in being Japanese, but it is rarely boisterous. It emerges in the way people care for public spaces, in the quiet order of a train queue, in the respectful hush of a museum. It's not about flags or slogans, it's about responsibility. You sweep not just your doorstep, but the path beyond it. You take your trash home from a park, not because there's a rule, but because it's considerate. These small acts add up to something bigger, a shared understanding that we all play a part. At the same time, modern Japan is home to an increasing number of voices exploring individuality within this collective frame. Youth culture is endlessly inventive, with fashion trends that range from minimalist chic to full-blown cosplay extravagance. Artists, writers, and musicians continue to push boundaries, creating new spaces for expression. The balance between group harmony and personal authenticity is shifting, evolving, finding its rhythm. And within families and friendships, emotional expression is finding new forms. Traditional restraint still exists, but so does warmth, silliness, and affection, often communicated not in grand declarations, but in quiet, consistent presence. A lunchbox made with care, a text sent at just the right moment, a souvenir from a trip. These are gestures of love, written not in words, but in thoughtfulness. In every layer of Japanese life, from the spoken to the unspoken, the personal to the communal, there is a deep and steady heartbeat. It doesn't clamour for attention, but it doesn't go unnoticed. It hums through alleyways, classrooms, festivals, and bathhouses. It's in the way people speak, the way they move, and the way they care for each other, for the seasons, for the spaces they share. It is quiet, but it is constant, and it tells you this is Japan, not just the place, but the people. If you stroll through a quiet forest path in Japan, you might stumble upon a small wooden gate, its frame gently weathered, a rope of braided straw hanging across its top like a silent sentinel. Beyond it, a mossy staircase leads upward to a shrine nestled among cedar trees. There are no loud signs, no towering spires, just a stillness that feels alive. You haven't just found a pretty spot in the woods, you've entered a sacred space. And in Japan, these spaces are everywhere. The spiritual life of Japan isn't confined to temples or grand cathedrals. It flows through everyday life like water, subtle, persistent, and essential. What makes Japan unique is not just its belief systems, but how they overlap, intertwine, and ripple out into culture, aesthetics, and even urban planning. Here, religion isn't a declaration, it's a presence. The most ancient spiritual thread running through Japan is Shinto, often described not so much as a religion, but as a way of being. Rooted in a deep reverence for nature, Shinto is the indigenous belief system of Japan, older than any written history. It is built around the concept of kami, sacred spirits that inhabit all things. A kami might dwell in a towering mountain, a gnarled pine tree, a waterfall, or even a particularly beautiful rock. They're not gods in the Western sense, but more like echoes of the sacred in the everyday world. Shinto shrines, or jinja, are scattered across the country like lanterns in the dusk. Some are enormous and majestic, like Fushimi Inari in Kyoto, with its endless tunnel of vermilion torii gates. Others are so small they could be mistaken for a mailbox, quietly standing beside a rice field or a suburban sidewalk. These shrines are places of gratitude, prayer, and purification. Before entering, visitors cleanse their hands and mouths at a stone basin, then approach the main altar to bow, clap twice, and offer a silent wish or thank you. It's less about formal doctrine and more about connecting with nature, with ancestors, and with something gently beyond words. Rituals are central to Shinto practice. The new year is welcomed with shrine visits and purifying fires. Weddings are often held in traditional attire under the watchful gaze of shrine priests. And throughout the year, festivals called Matsuri light up the streets with dancing, drumming, and parade of elaborately decorated floats. These are not sombre religious affairs. They are joyful, noisy, and deeply rooted in community. The spiritual and the celebratory go hand in hand. But Japan's spiritual story doesn't end with Shinto. Around the 6th century, Buddhism made its way across the sea from China and Korea, bringing with it new philosophies, art, and rituals. Rather than replacing Shinto, Buddhism settled in beside it, offering a complementary view of existence. While Shinto focuses on life, nature, and purity, Buddhism leans toward the inner world, meditation, impermanence, and the path to enlightenment. There are many branches of Buddhism in Japan, but one of the most influential is Zen. Minimalist yet profound, Zen Buddhism emphasizes meditation and direct experience over scripture and doctrine. It's about seeing things as they are, without filters, assumptions, or the need to explain. This simplicity has deeply shaped Japanese aesthetics. Think of the stone gardens of Ryoanji Temple, where raked gravel and carefully placed rocks create vast, silent landscapes, or the ink paintings that use only a few brushstrokes to evoke mountains, birds, and waterfalls. In Zen, beauty lies in the space between things. Temple life is equally rich in ritual. The scent of incense drifting through a wooden hall, the rhythmic chants of monks at dawn, the soft ring of a bell echoing across a courtyard. Many temples offer opportunities for visitors to participate, whether it's copying sutras by hand, sitting in meditation, or simply lighting a candle and pausing in the hush. Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines often coexist side by side, sometimes even within the same grounds. This harmony between the two faiths is known as Shinbutsu Shugo, the blending of kami and Buddhas. For centuries, this syncretism defined Japan's spiritual identity. People would visit both shrines and temples without contradiction, one for blessing a new home, the other for a funeral, one for prayers of thanks, the other for questions about life and death. Even after the Meiji era separated Shinto and Buddhism for political reasons, their deep intertwining remains. You'll find Shinto torii gates leading into Buddhist temple complexes, and Buddhist statues quietly residing in Shinto grounds. Religion in Japan isn't about strict boundaries. It's more like overlapping ripples on a pond. And those ripples reach deep into the calendar. Throughout the year, spiritual festivals offer both solemnity and celebration. One of the most poignant is Obon, held in August, when it's believed that the spirits of ancestors return to visit the living. Lanterns are lit to guide them home, dances are held in town squares, and families clean graves, offering food and incense to welcome their loved ones. It's not a time of mourning, but of reunion, a gentle acknowledgement of life's continuity. Then there's Shichigo-san, a celebration held every November for children aged 7, 5, and 3. Families dress their little ones in kimono and visit shrines to pray for health and happiness. It's a charming mix of formality and play, with children wobbling in getter sandals and beaming for photos as their parents try to keep them still long enough for a priest's blessing. And perhaps The most universally observed event is the Hatsumode, the first shrine visit of the new year. At midnight on January 1st, people flock to their local shrine, ringing bells to banish bad luck and welcome fresh beginnings. It's a night of bundled coats, sweet rice wine, and quiet hopes for the year ahead. Even in the heart of Tokyo, lines form under the glow of lanterns as incense mingles with the cold winter air. Spirituality also lives in architecture. Shinto shrines are made of natural materials, unpainted wood, thatched roofs, and simple lines. They blend into the landscape, often nestled in groves or near water, their very design encouraging a sense of peace and humility. Buddhist temples, by contrast, can be grand and ornate, with sweeping roofs, painted beams, and elaborate altars. Yet even at their most elaborate, there's a sense of balance and reverence, a reminder that space itself can be sacred. Aesthetics in Japan have long been shaped by spiritual ideals. The concept of ma, the space between things, is deeply spiritual, inviting silence, pause, and presence. The tea ceremony, though often seen as cultural, is in many ways a spiritual act. Each movement, each gesture, is performed with mindfulness and respect, drawing on Zen ideals of simplicity and attention. Even gardens are designed not just for beauty, but for reflection. A pond might mirror the sky to remind you of your place in the universe. A path might bend slightly to reveal new perspectives with each step. The goal is not to impress, but to invite contemplation. Spiritual practice in Japan is rarely loud or assertive. There are no door-knocking missionaries, no shouted sermons. It is quiet, often private, and deeply personal. It's found in the daily rituals, placing fresh flowers before a family altar, offering a coin and a bow at a roadside shrine, lighting incense on the anniversary of a loved one's passing. These acts are not about conversion or doctrine. They are about connection, remembrance, and peace. And perhaps most touching is how spirituality embraces impermanence. Where some cultures fear transience, Japanese spiritual life often celebrates it. The cherry blossom's brief bloom is a spiritual metaphor. The idea that nothing lasts forever, that beauty is heightened by its fragility, is at the heart of both Shinto and Buddhist thinking. This acceptance of life's fleeting nature doesn't bring sadness, but depth. A sense that every moment, no matter how small, matters. Whether you're watching a monk sweep fallen leaves from a temple path or tying a wish to a tree at a shrine, you are witnessing a way of life that sees the sacred in the ordinary. In Japan, the spiritual is not separate from daily life. It is daily life. A temple bell rings through morning fog. A shrine gate frames the moon. And somewhere, someone is quietly bowing in gratitude, not because they must, but because they can. In Japan, food is never just food. It's poetry on a plate, ritual in a bowl, and sometimes a heartfelt memory wrapped in seaweed. To eat here is to travel through history, geography, and philosophy, all in a single bite. There's a reason why a simple rice ball can bring someone to tears, and why noodles are slurped with audible joy rather than suppressed decorum. In Japan, taste is tradition, and every meal is an invitation to connect with nature, with others, and with the passing seasons. Let's start with the quiet king of the Japanese table, rice. More than just a staple, rice is a symbol of life, prosperity, and spiritual grounding. It's not merely cooked, it's prepared with attention and respect. The word for cooked rice, gohan, also means meal, underscoring how central it is to Japanese cuisine. Historically, rice was so valuable that it was once used as currency and even determined samurai salaries. Before eating, it's customary to say itadakimasu, a humble phrase that roughly means I gratefully receive. It's not directed toward the chef, but rather the food itself, and by extension, everything that contributed to it, the farmers, the rain, the sun, even the life that was taken to provide nourishment. When the meal ends, Gochiso-sama deshita is spoken, offering thanks for the feast. These phrases murmured before and after eating add a quiet reverence to the act of dining, an acknowledgement that a meal is a gift, not a given. And then there's sushi, the most internationally recognized Japanese dish, though its image abroad often bears little resemblance to its origins. Sushi began not as a luxury, but as a way of preserving fish in fermented rice. Over time, it evolved into the refined art we know today. In the hands of a skilled itamae, or sushi chef, even the simplest piece of nigiri, just rice and a slice of fish, becomes a miniature sculpture of texture, temperature, and taste. The rice is vinegared to a precise balance of sweetness and acidity. The fish is sliced with the grain, not against it, to preserve its integrity. And each piece is shaped by hand, never moulded, so the grains of rice remain airy and separate. Sushi etiquette is gentle but deliberate. It's often eaten in a single bite, fish side down to maximize flavor. Drenching it in soy sauce or drowning it in wasabi is generally discouraged, not out of snobbery, but because it masks the carefully curated balance of flavors. And while conveyor belt sushi restaurants are perfectly acceptable and fun, the quiet reverence of a traditional sushi counter, where the chef watches your reaction and prepares each piece with your taste in mind, is something truly special. But for every elegant sushi bar, there is a steaming bowl of ramen waiting somewhere to embrace you like a warm hug. Ramen is Japan's comfort food, fast, flavorful, and endlessly varied. It may have originated from Chinese noodle soups, but Japan took it and ran, turning ramen into a national obsession. Every region has its own version. Miso ramen from Hokkaido, rich with butter and corn. Tonkotsu ramen from Kyushu. Its broth simmered from pork bones until it turns milky and luxurious. And shoyu ramen from Tokyo, flavoured with soy sauce and topped with bamboo shoots, nori, and soft-boiled eggs. What makes ramen special isn't just the broth or the noodles, it's the experience. You order from a vending machine outside the shop, squeeze onto a narrow stool, and within minutes, a bowl arrives that is both deeply personal and completely unpretentious. And yes, slurping is encouraged. It's not only socially acceptable, but considered a sign of appreciation. Plus, it aerates the noodles and enhances the flavour, much like swirling wine in a glass. If your first instinct is to eat quietly, resist it. Let those noodles sing. Now, if sushi is elegance and ramen is comfort, kaiseki is poetry. Kaiseki dining is the Japanese version of haute cuisine, but instead of extravagance, it celebrates restraint and harmony. Originally derived from the modest meals served at tea ceremonies, kaiseki has evolved into a multi-course symphony of seasonal ingredients, artfully arranged and designed to engage all 5 senses. A typical kaiseki meal begins with a small appetizer meant to set the tone, followed by a sequence of dishes that include sashimi, simmered vegetables, grilled fish, and often a dish steamed or fried. Each course is presented on carefully chosen tableware that reflects the season, a ceramic dish with a maple leaf motif in autumn, or a lacquered tray with plum blossoms in spring. Even the colours of the food are chosen with nature in mind. It's not just about eating, it's about experiencing the essence of a moment in time. Equally profound, in its own quiet way, is the Japanese tea ceremony, or chanoyu. It might sound like an elegant way to sip green tea, but it is so much more. Rooted in Zen Buddhist principles, the tea ceremony is a slow, deliberate practice in which every gesture has meaning. The host carefully cleans each utensil, boils water, and whisks powdered matcha into a bright green froth. The guest receives the bowl with a bow, turns it slightly, and takes a measured sip. It is a choreography of humility, mindfulness, and hospitality. The beauty of the tea ceremony lies not in luxury, but in imperfection. The tea bowls are often handmade, asymmetrical, and subtly glazed. The room is sparse, the silence part of the experience. It's a reminder that stillness has value, and that a single bowl of tea shared in good company can become a memory that lasts a lifetime. Of course, no culinary exploration would be complete without a look at Japan's delightful world of sweets. Unlike their Western counterparts, Japanese sweets, or wagashi, tend to favour subtlety over sugar rush. Many are made with rice flour, sweet bean paste, and seasonal ingredients, resulting in textures and tastes that are both gentle and complex. Mochi, the chewy rice cakes, come in countless varieties. Some are filled with red bean paste, others dusted with soybean flour, and some, like daifuku, are served ice cold with a slice of fruit inside. There's dorayaki, a sort of pancake sandwich filled with sweet bean paste, famously loved by the animated character Doraemon. And then there's the seasonal wagashi that look almost too beautiful to eat, shaped like chrysanthemums in autumn, hydrangeas in the rainy season, or snowflakes in winter. These confections are not just tasty, they're thoughtfully designed to mirror the world outside. Eating one is a small act of seasonal appreciation, a sweet nod to the passing moment. They're often served with tea in quiet moments of reflection, or during celebrations like Hinamatsuri, the doll festival in March, when girls are celebrated and delicate, pink-coloured sweets fill the shelves. Eating in Japan is not rushed. Meals are not something to be multitasked. They are occasions, whether it's a simple bento box eaten on a park bench or a home-cooked meal shared in silence. Even convenience store food, yes, the convenience store food, is prepared with care. Where else can you buy a perfectly soft-boiled egg, a triangular rice ball with seaweed that somehow stays crispy, or a cup of matcha pudding, all for the price of a train ride? And speaking of convenience, even eating on the go has its unspoken rules. In general, walking while eating is considered impolite, especially in more formal areas or crowded streets. Instead, it's common to stand near the vending machine or designated benches, take a moment to enjoy the food, and then continue on. It's a small reminder that food, even fast food, deserves attention. Food in Japan isn't always elaborate, but it is almost always thoughtful. There's a respect for ingredients, for presentation, and for the people who share the table. Whether it's a bento box packed with little compartments of colour-coordinated joy, or a steaming donburi bowl filled with rice and grilled eel, each meal tells a story. And those stories linger. In a bowl of miso soup, you taste centuries of home cooking. In a bite of grilled mackerel, the salt of the sea and the hands that caught it, in the crunch of pickled plum, the wisdom of seasons preserved. Japanese food, at its heart, is about connection to the land, to the people, and to fleeting moments that are quietly, deliciously unforgettable. Of course, not everything is profound. Some meals are simply fun, like the sizzling street food of summer festivals, takoyaki octopus balls drizzled with sauce and mayonnaise, or yakisoba noodles stir-fried on hot grills. There are vending machines that dispense hot soup, cafes that serve pancakes shaped like animals, and little shops where you can toast marshmallows over your own mini fire. Japan's food culture is a layered feast, elegant, playful, ancient, and modern all at once. And somewhere between the ceremony of pouring tea and the slurping of ramen, it becomes clear that every bite here carries more than flavour. It carries memory, meaning, and the quiet joy of being fully present. If you close your eyes in Japan and just listen, the country begins to sing. Not loudly, not in sweeping choruses, but in subtle melodies woven into everyday life. There's the deep thud of taiko drums echoing through festival streets, the breathy whisper of a shakuhachi flute drifting over a temple garden, and the synthetic sparkle of a pop tune spilling out of a convenience store. From ancient court halls to karaoke booths filled with earnest crooners. Music in Japan isn't just background noise, it's part of the cultural fabric. The oldest sounds stretch back more than 1,000 years to the imperial courts of Kyoto, where a form of classical music known as gagaku was played. The word itself means elegant music, and that's exactly what it is. Stately, otherworldly, and incredibly slow. It's performed with instruments that might look more at home in a museum. Bronze gongs, mouth organs made of bamboo, and flutes that sound like wind over a mountain pass. Listening to gagaku feels like stepping into a dream, one where time has decided to take a long, deliberate breath. Then there's the shakuhachi, a bamboo flute with roots in Zen Buddhism. It's said that monks once used the instrument as a tool for meditation, blowing long, airy notes that mimic the sounds of nature. Wind through trees, birds calling at dawn, distant thunder. The shakuhachi doesn't follow Western scales. Its tones are breathy, wavering, and deeply human. It's the sound of solitude, of contemplation, of rain falling on a garden roof. In contrast, the taiko drum doesn't whisper, it roars. These massive drums, some taller than a person, are played with theatrical energy, often in coordinated ensembles where each strike is choreographed like a dance. Taiko performances are thrilling to watch and exhilarating to hear. The sound is physical. You feel it in your chest, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Originally used in rituals, warfare, and village announcements, taiko has become both a traditional art and a modern spectacle, with professional troupes touring the world and blending ancient rhythms with contemporary flair. Traditional Japanese music is often deeply tied to place and season. Folk songs vary from region to region, carrying with them the stories of farmers, fishermen, and travelling performers. Instruments like the koto, a long zither with 13 strings, are played to evoke specific moods. Springtime blossoms, autumn leaves falling, the quiet sorrow of parting. Even the scales used are designed to reflect nature's flow, using tones that rise and fall like a breeze over hills. Yet for all its reverence for tradition, Japan has never been shy about embracing new sounds. In the 20th century, Western music flooded in: jazz, rock, classical, and was promptly absorbed and transformed. Japan's music scene today is as diverse and dynamic as its fashion or food. You can walk down a single Tokyo street and hear a jazz saxophonist outside a cafe, an idol group blaring from a billboard truck, and someone softly strumming a guitar in a park. Pop idols, in particular, are a cultural phenomenon. Idol groups, often composed of teenage girls or boys, are trained not only to sing and dance, but to present a carefully curated image of youth, charm, and approachability. Groups like AKB48 or Arashi attract legions of fans, many of whom follow their favourites for years. These idols perform in tightly choreographed concerts, release endless merchandise, and sometimes appear in movies, variety shows, or even political campaigns. While the music is usually cheerful and catchy, the real appeal lies in the personalities behind the songs and the sense of connection fans feel with them. But it's not all glitter and choreography. One of the most quietly influential exports from Japan in recent years is the genre known as lo-fi hip-hop. Specifically, the chill beats that so many people now use to study, relax, or fall asleep. Often instrumental, often looped, these tracks combine mellow melodies with the scratchy charm of vinyl and ambient sound effects like rain, train tracks, or soft murmurs. The most iconic symbol of this genre is an animated girl studying at her desk, headphones on, cat in the window, a modern, global lullaby crafted in the heart of Japanese calm. Then, of course, there's anime music, a genre in its own right. From the soaring orchestral scores of Studio Ghibli films to the high-energy openings of shonen anime like Naruto or Attack on Titan, these songs are as beloved as the shows themselves. Many fans can recite lyrics word for word, even without knowing the language, and anime soundtracks often chart in mainstream music rankings. Some composers, like Joe Hisaishi, have become household names for their evocative scores that blend classical, folk, and electronic elements into something uniquely cinematic. But perhaps the most beloved form of musical expression in Japan is karaoke. In theory, karaoke is simple. Pick a song, grab the mic, and sing your heart out. But in practice, it's a deeply personal, often emotional ritual. Karaoke boxes, small private rooms with sound systems and snacks, are everywhere. They're used for dates, parties, solo stress relief, and the occasional post-work emotional breakdown. Unlike Western karaoke bars, where strangers perform for an audience, karaoke in Japan is intimate. You sing among friends or by yourself, and the emphasis isn't on perfection but on sincerity. That colleague who barely speaks in meetings might belt out a touching rendition of an old ballad. That shy student might come alive with a J-pop anthem. It's a place where masks come off, just for a song or two. And yes, there are tambourines, always tambourines. Beyond formal performances, music weaves through daily life in charming and unexpected ways. Train stations each have their own melodic departure chimes, soft jingles that help passengers know which platform they're on and when their train is leaving. These short tunes are chosen not just for function, but for mood, often reflecting the season or the character of the neighbourhood. Some are gentle and nostalgic, others upbeat and cheerful. Tokyo's Ebisu station famously plays a snippet of a beer commercial jingle, while Takadano Barber uses the theme from Astro Boy. Crosswalks, too, are musical. In some areas, they chirp like birds or play a short melody when it's safe to cross. These aren't just practical, they're oddly comforting, like little audio bookmarks in the city's daily story. Even garbage trucks sometimes play gentle classical music as they make their rounds, turning a mundane task into something just a bit more pleasant. Music also plays a central role in religious and seasonal festivals. You'll hear the slow, hypnotic beat of taiko during obon dances in the summer, the ringing of temple bells on New Year's Eve, and the joyful chaos of flute and drum ensembles during shrine processions. These aren't concerts, they're collective rituals, moments where sound becomes the glue between people, time, and place. And even nature joins the orchestra. Japan's forests and rice fields are filled with the sounds of cicadas in summer, frogs in spring, and the high-pitched trill of night insects in autumn. These natural choruses are so closely tied to the seasons that they often appear in poetry and music. The call of a single insect might evoke an entire emotional season. It's no wonder that traditional instruments were designed to echo these natural tones, to reflect rather than overpower the world around them. Whether it's the soft chords of a shamisen drifting through a traditional inn, the synthetic pulse of a dance track in Shibuya, or the humble hum of someone singing softly to themselves on a train ride home, Japan is a nation tuned to its own frequency. It respects silence, but it knows the power of sound. And in every note, ancient or modern, whispered or thundered, there is a sense of presence, of place, and of feeling. Music in Japan doesn't demand to be heard. It invites you to listen. In Japan, art isn't locked away in museums. It's everywhere. It lives in the grain of a hand-carved bowl, in the swish of a brushstroke, in the layout of a garden, and even in the quiet perfection of a single teacup. It is not something separate from life, but deeply woven into the rhythm of daily existence. Creativity in Japan doesn't scream for attention. It whispers with precision, restraint, and reverence for the materials at hand. One of the most iconic art forms to emerge from Japan is ukiyo-e, the woodblock print style that captured the floating world of Edo-era life. These prints were not made for aristocrats or connoisseurs. They were the pop art of their time, affordable and widely circulated. Artists like Hokusai and Hiroshige created vivid scenes of landscapes, kabuki actors, and courtesans, all carved and printed with astonishing detail and vibrant colours. Hokusai's famous Great Wave of Kanagawa is recognised the world over. Its crashing energy frozen forever in blue ink and swirling foam. Ukiyo-e prints weren't just beautiful, they were collaborative. The process involved a designer, a carver, a printer, and a publisher, each contributing a layer to the final piece. This shared authorship is part of what makes them so remarkable. They are communal expressions of individual visions. They also laid the foundation for modern Japanese visual storytelling, influencing everything from graphic design to comic art. And speaking of comics, few art forms have had the global reach and cultural impact of manga. These illustrated stories range from light-hearted tales of school life to sprawling epics about space battles or mythical creatures. They're read by people of all ages, on trains, in cafes, and curled up under blanket late into the night. Manga is not a genre, it's a medium, one that reflects every facet of human experience. Artists like Osamu Tezuka, often called the god of manga, transformed the format into something cinematic, while contemporary creators continue to push its boundaries in both style and subject matter. Each panel of a manga page is meticulously constructed, balancing text, image, and pacing in a way that feels effortless but is anything but. Some artists spend weeks drawing a single chapter, and the level of detail can be astounding. From elaborate cityscapes to the subtle flicker of emotion in a character's eyes. Manga isn't just about plot, it's about mood, atmosphere, and rhythm. It's storytelling as visual poetry. Another pillar of Japanese artistry is shodo, or calligraphy. To the untrained eye, it may look like elegant handwriting, but to practitioners, it is a deeply spiritual act. With a brush dipped in ink, each stroke is deliberate, each line a reflection of the artist's state of mind. There is no erasing, no editing. Once the brush meets paper, it's a direct expression of the present moment. The characters themselves carry layers of meaning, not just in their literal definitions, but in their visual composition. A single word can become a kind of dance across the page, full of motion and emotion. Calligraphy is often practiced alongside Zen, not to create perfect characters, but to cultivate presence. In that way, each piece becomes not just art, but a trace of a person's breath, posture, and intention. This mindfulness extends to ceramics, an art form that in Japan often straddles the line between functional object and sacred vessel. Pottery here isn't about flashy glazes or ornate decoration. It's about texture, balance, and a deep respect for the clay itself. Pieces are often asymmetrical, their beauty found in irregularities and imperfections. The philosophy of wabi-sabi, appreciating the beauty of impermanence and imperfection, runs through the heart of Japanese ceramics. One of the most revered styles is raku-ware, traditionally used in tea ceremonies. Each piece is hand-formed, often fired in open flames, and cooled rapidly to produce unique textures and colours. No two are ever the same. They're meant to be held, examined, and cherished, not just for their function, but for the feeling they evoke. Cracks, bumps, and subtle warping aren't flaws. They're part of the story. And then there is the artistry of the sword. The Japanese katana is more than a weapon. It is a masterwork of engineering, metallurgy, and aesthetic balance. Forged by skilled tosho, swordsmiths, a katana is constructed by repeatedly folding and hammering steel to create a blade that is both incredibly sharp and astonishingly durable. The forging process is ritualistic, almost sacred. The sword isn't just made, it is born. The design of a katana is a study in form and function. The curve of the blade, the pattern of the folded steel, the precise wrapping of the hilt, even the lacquered scabbard, it all reflects an ethos of care and control. Historically, swords were symbols of honour and responsibility. Today, while rarely used for their original purpose, they are still revered as embodiments of craftsmanship and spirit. Architecture in Japan also reflects this harmony of art and utility. Traditional buildings are constructed with a lightness and flexibility that mirrors the landscape. Pagodas rise with layered roofs that seem to float in the air. Their wooden beams fitted without nails and complex joinery that has withstood earthquakes for centuries. Houses feature sliding paper doors, tatami floors, and verandas that blur the line between indoors and out. At the heart of this design is a respect for nature and transience. Spaces are not meant to dominate, but to coexist. Rooms can change function with the movement of a screen or the placing of a mat. Light filters through rice paper in soft, shifting patterns. A home becomes a canvas for shadows, for seasons, for stillness. Yet Japan is not a country frozen in the past. Its modern architecture is among the most daring and imaginative in the world. Tokyo alone is a living museum of architectural experimentation. Glass towers that twist like DNA, homes that look like spacecraft, museums that vanish into the landscape. Architects like Tadao Ando have become legends, using raw concrete, water, and light to create spaces that feel more like meditations than buildings. Whether it's a centuries-old shrine or a cutting-edge skyscraper, the through line is thoughtfulness. Every element is considered, not just how it looks, but how it feels, how it breathes, how it fits into the flow of life around it. This deep care for objects extends to a curious and charming bit of folklore, tsukumogami. According to this belief, everyday objects, if treated with respect and used for at least 100 years, can gain a soul. A kettle, a sandal, a paper lantern. Given time and love, they become sentient. Not in a horror movie kind of way, but more like shy old friends with creaky joints and secret lives. Tsukumogami reflect a culture that sees value not just in the new, but in the enduring. They remind us to treat our belongings with care, to mend rather than discard, to cherish rather than consume. It's a worldview that imbues even the smallest acts, folding a cloth, setting a table, sharpening a pencil, with quiet significance. In many ways, Japanese art is about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. It doesn't need grand canvases or gilded frames. It can be found in the pattern of a kimono, the curve of a roof tile, or the simplicity of a bento lunch. Creativity isn't reserved for galleries. It lives in kitchens, gardens, sidewalks, and stationery shops. And it's not just about creation, it's about attention. To make something by hand, to devote time and skill and care, is to push back against haste and disposability. Whether it's a manga page inked at 3 a.m. or a teacup glazed in silence, Japanese art is a celebration of process, of patience, and of presence. Here craft is not a pastime. It is a practice, a path, a way of seeing the world not as something to conquer or impress, but as something to notice, shape, and share. And in that noticing, in that slow, deliberate making, something beautiful unfolds. Something that asks nothing of you, except that you pause for a moment and truly see. In Japan, stories do not simply entertain, they linger. They pass through generations like wind through bamboo, changing shape slightly with each telling, but always carrying the essence of something timeless. Whether whispered around a fire, written on rice paper, or typed into a glowing screen, storytelling here has always held a kind of sacred weight. And at its heart, Japanese literature is less about loud climaxes and more about quiet revelations, the things left unsaid, the spaces between the stars. Long before printing presses or paperbacks, there was the tale of Genji, often considered the world's first novel. Written over 1,000 years ago by Murasaki Shikibu, a noble woman in the Heian court, this sprawling epic follows the life and loves of Hikaru Genji, a prince so handsome and emotionally complex that he might well be the original romantic lead. But this isn't just a love story. It's a mirror held up to courtly life, a meditation on beauty, longing, and the impermanence of happiness. What's remarkable is not just its age, but its psychological depth. Murasaki captured human emotion with an astonishing delicacy. Her characters are flawed, tender, proud, melancholic. Their relationships unfold slowly in glances and poems and fleeting encounters. Reading Genji is like stepping into a silk painting where every gesture matters and every sigh might echo for a century. Even today, it's studied not only as literature, but as a cultural time capsule, a window into the aesthetics, rituals, and internal lives of a refined and often cloistered world. If the tale of Genji is the grand cathedral of Japanese literature, then haiku is its smallest temple. Just 17 syllables, 5, 7, 5, and yet within that tiny frame, entire worlds unfold. A frog jumping into an old pond. Snow falling silently on withered branches. The scent of plum blossoms carried by the wind. Haiku is the art of precision, of noticing, of distilling a moment so clearly that it becomes eternal. The most famous haiku poet is Matsuo Basho, who travelled the countryside in the 17th century, composing verse inspired by the changing seasons and the quiet poetry of rural life. His writing is both grounded and transcendent, rooted in the dust of travel yet reaching toward the infinite. His most iconic haiku simply reads, "An old silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash. Silence again." In those few lines, you hear not just the frog, but the stillness that surrounds it. The moment, captured and suspended like dew on a blade of grass. Seasonality is central to haiku, and to Japanese poetry as a whole. Each season carries specific imagery. Cherry blossoms in spring, cicadas in summer, red maple in autumn, snow in winter. And these are not just decorative elements. They are emotional cues, symbols of time passing and life's gentle impermanence. In just a few words, a haiku can make you feel nostalgia for something you've never experienced. But Japan's literary tradition is not all elegance and restraint. Lurking beneath the surface is a rich, shadowy world of folklore and ghost stories, passed down through generations in whispers and warnings. In these tales, animals talk, spirits wander, and the line between this world and the next is as thin as a paper screen. Take the kitsune, for example, a fox spirit known for its intelligence, shape-shifting abilities, and occasional mischief. Kitsune can be protectors or tricksters, lovers or liars, often appearing as beautiful women who vanish when their tales are discovered. They are symbols of transformation, both magical and emotional, and they show up in everything from kabuki plays to manga series. Then there are the kappa, water-dwelling creatures with turtle shells and bowl-shaped depressions on their heads that must stay wet for them to survive. They're known for challenging humans to sumo matches, stealing cucumbers, and generally causing trouble near rivers. But give them a polite bow, and they might return it, spilling the water on their heads and rendering themselves powerless. Lesson: always be polite to mythical swamp creatures. And of course, there are the yurei, ghost of the vengeful or sorrowful dead, often depicted in white funeral robes with long black hair and expressionless faces. These spirits are not always evil, but they are deeply bound to unfinished business. You'll find them in traditional Keidan stories, where horror comes not from monsters but from regret, betrayal, or love that refused to die. Think less jump scare, more lingering unease. These folkloric figures are not confined to old scrolls or dusty corners of the past. They continue to populate modern literature, films, and television. You can see their influence in Studio Ghibli films, in horror movies like The Ring, and even in children's stories where a friendly fox might still have secrets. Contemporary Japanese literature carries all of these threads: classical elegance, seasonal observation, mythic symbolism, but weaves them into new and deeply personal patterns. Few authors have done this with more global resonance than Haruki Murakami, whose novels walk a tightrope between the mundane and the surreal. In his world, cats talk, wells conceal emotional truths, and people vanish without warning into other realities. Murakami's characters are often quiet, introspective loners navigating a world that seems just slightly off-kilter. In one novel, a man searches for his missing wife and ends up in a parallel world involving mysterious phone calls and soldiers from another dimension. In another, a young woman climbs down into a dark subway station and never quite comes back. His writing is dreamy, elliptical, and full of jazz records, spaghetti, and metaphysical questions. It's the literary equivalent of wandering through Tokyo at midnight, not quite sure where you're going, but not wanting the night to end. On the other side of the emotional spectrum is Banana Yoshimoto, whose writing is gentle, intimate, and often centered on everyday life, touched by loss or change. Her breakout novel, Kitchen, explores grief, love, and identity through the story of a young woman obsessed with cooking after the death of her grandmother. Yoshimoto's prose is simple but emotionally resonant. She writes about the kind of pain that doesn't scream but quietly lingers, and the healing that comes from human connection, even in the smallest gestures. These authors, though stylistically different, share a sensitivity to emotion, an openness to the surreal, and a deep respect for atmosphere. They continue a long tradition of Japanese storytelling that values interiority, ambiguity, and the gentle passage of time. Japanese literature also thrives in the short story format, where brevity becomes a kind of strength. Writers like Yasunari Kawabata, who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1968, mastered this form. His stories are like finely cut gems, spare, shimmering, and often quietly devastating. In Snow Country, one of his most famous novels, the landscape itself becomes a character, reflecting the emotional distances between people. And while much of Japanese literature is quiet and introspective, it also has a playful side. Writers like Ryu Murakami, no relation to Haruki, explore the darker, more chaotic corners of urban life, often with biting satire and unsettling imagery. Natsuo Kirino dives into the gritty realities of crime and gender, with psychological thrillers that are both brutal and deeply thoughtful. Across genres and generations, what unites Japanese literature is its ability to hold contradiction with grace. It is light and dark, whimsical and profound, rooted in tradition but always willing to bend the rules. It invites readers not to race through plot points, but to dwell in moments, to feel the chill of a Yurei's breath, the ache of a lover's absence, the quiet joy of plum blossoms opening in early spring. Books in Japan are often read slowly, thoughtfully, perhaps with a cup of tea by the window. They are companions as much as stories. And whether you're reading a 1,000-year-old epic or a novella published last week, there's a sense that each word has been chosen with care, not to impress, but to invite you closer. To read Japanese literature is to walk through a landscape of memory, myth, and emotion. It is to trace your fingers across the paper stars of someone else's sky and find, to your surprise, that they spell something familiar, something true, something quietly human. In Japan, play is rarely just about fun. It's often layered with tradition, discipline, and a quiet determination to give it your all. Whether it's a sumo wrestler stomping on sacred ground, a high school baseball team training before sunrise, or a child flipping bottle caps in an alleyway, the playful spirit of Japan carries an unmistakable energy, serious joy. It's a paradox that somehow works. Play taken seriously, and seriousness played with grace. At the centre of this spirit is sumo, Japan's oldest and most iconic sport. To the untrained eye, it might look like two large men in loincloths trying to push each other out of a ring. But watch more closely, and you'll see layers of ritual and meaning embedded in every stomp, glare, and slap. Sumo dates back over 1,000 years and was originally performed to entertain the gods in Shinto ceremonies. That divine link remains. Every match begins with purification rituals. Wrestlers throw salt to cleanse the ring, slap their bellies to scare off evil spirits, and engage in a psychological standoff that's equal parts performance and strategy. The wrestlers themselves, or rikishi, are not just athletes. They're living embodiments of tradition. They live in communal training stables, follow strict hierarchies, and adhere to rigorous routines that would make most Olympic hopefuls wince. Their top knots are styled in the fashion of ancient samurai, and their movements, though forceful, are steeped in grace. A match may last only seconds, but it is the result of years of disciplined practice, mental preparation, and an unshakable respect for the sport's sacred roots. And yet, for all its ancient austerity, sumo is a deeply human experience. The crowd cheers with wild abandon. The announcers shout with operatic flair. Upsets are celebrated, legends are born, and every match carries the weight of history mixed with the thrill of unpredictability. While sumo draws from ancient tradition, other martial arts in Japan offer a different kind of discipline, one that focuses as much on the mind as the body. Kendo, for example, is often called the way of the sword, but it's really about the way of the self. Practitioners wear protective armour and wield bamboo swords called shinai, shouting with every strike to synchronise breath, body, and intent. Matches are fast, precise, and incredibly intense, but the true purpose is internal. Kendo teaches presence, respect, and the ability to recover immediately from a mistake without hesitation. Judo, meaning the gentle way, takes a different approach. Rather than striking, Judo is about using your opponent's force against them, redirecting energy, exploiting imbalance, and finding victory through softness. It's a beautiful paradox, control through yielding. Developed by Jigoro Kano in the late 19th century, Judo was designed not just as a combat sport, but as a means of personal growth. It's now practiced around the world, and was the first Japanese martial art to become an official Olympic sport. Other martial arts like Aikido, Kyudo, archery, and karate each have their own philosophies, but they share a common thread: Bushido, the way of the warrior. It's not about aggression, but integrity. These are arts where bowing is as important as striking, and where every movement is a reflection of inner character. But martial arts aren't the only passions that animate the playful heart of Japan. Perhaps unexpectedly, one of the most fervently loved pastimes in the country is baseball. Yes, baseball, the American pastime, has found a second, perhaps more enthusiastic home in Japan. Introduced in the 1870s by an American educator, baseball quickly became a national obsession, not only as a spectator sport, but as a formative part of youth culture. High school baseball in particular is taken very seriously. Every summer, teams from across the country compete in a national tournament known as Kushien, held at a stadium near Osaka. The event is a cultural phenomenon, drawing millions of viewers. But what makes it special isn't just the athleticism, it's the emotion. Players train year-round, often sacrificing weekends, holidays and social lives for their team. When a team loses, the players bow deeply, sometimes with tears streaming down their faces, then collect soil from the field as a keepsake of their effort. Victory is sweet, but dignified defeat is just as honourable. Professional baseball in Japan also carries its own flair. The atmosphere at games is part sporting event, part choreographed festival. Fans sing team-specific chants, wave coordinated banners, and release balloons into the sky during the 7th inning. There are cheerleaders, mascots, and vendors selling bento boxes instead of hot dogs. And the players themselves, from local legends to international stars like Shohei Ohtani, are admired not only for their skill, but for their humility, discipline, and sportsmanship. Beyond the stadiums and dojos, the playful spirit of Japan pulses through everyday life. School children spend hours after class participating in bukatsu, or club activities, ranging from soccer and basketball to calligraphy, choir, and even insect collecting. These clubs are more than hobbies, they're an integral part of growing up. They teach teamwork, perseverance, and the ever-important cultural concept of ganbaru. Ganbaru is hard to translate neatly, but it roughly means to do one's best, or to keep going no matter what. It's not about winning, it's about effort, grit, and refusing to quit. Whether a child is practicing kendo or rehearsing a play, ganbaru is what drives them forward. It's a value that runs deep in Japanese society, from the smallest game of marbles to the most prestigious competitions. Everyone at every level is expected to give their all. Street games and childhood pastimes also carry this spirit, even if they're less formal. Games like kendama, a wooden toy where you try to catch a ball on a series of cups, or menko, a card-slapping battle game, have entertained generations. Children play jump rope, spin tops, race on unicycles, and chase each other in endless variations of tag. Convenience stores sell collectible toys and trading cards, while neighbourhood festivals often include booths with goldfish scooping or ring toss games. Play is everywhere, and often it's as much about tradition as it is about fun. As children grow, these playful impulses often evolve into more niche but equally passionate hobbies. Model train building, bonsai tree cultivation, arcade gaming, cosplay, and anime fan clubs all offer outlets for creativity and community. In Japan, being deeply invested in a hobby, no matter how obscure, isn't something to hide. It's something to celebrate. The culture values dedication, and so people pour themselves into their passions with the same intensity they bring to work or study. Even adults maintain their playful sides. Office workers often head to batting cages after hours, unwind in video game arcades, or meet up for late-night karaoke sessions. Game centres remain popular across all age groups, with multi-floor establishments offering everything from rhythm games and claw machines to virtual reality simulators. There's even a growing community of professional esports players and competitive puzzle solvers, proving that the definition of sport in Japan is flexible, inclusive, and ever-evolving. And of course, there are the countless quirky competitions and light-hearted contests that seem to pop up everywhere. From rubber band playing tournaments and Sudoku championships, to elaborate obstacle course game shows involving foam pits, trampolines, and wild costumes. In Japan, play doesn't always need a grand purpose. It just needs heart. The unifying thread through all of this is spirit. Whether in sumo or baseball, tea ceremony or dodgeball, there's a deep respect for process, for doing your best, for showing up fully. This is Ganbaru at its most joyful, not as pressure, but as possibility. The idea that effort itself has value, that even in games there is room to grow, to connect, and to express who you are. In Japan, play is not an escape from life. It is life. One more way to practice presence, build character, and share joy. It's a reminder that seriousness and fun are not opposites, but partners. That a child's game can hold as much wisdom as a formal ritual. And that the heart of a culture might just beat loudest in the sound of a ball hitting a bat, a bamboo sword clacking in practice, or a burst of laughter echoing down a quiet side street. Japan knows how to throw a celebration. But these aren't just parties with balloons and cake. Japanese festivals, or matsuri, are immersive experiences. Bursts of colour and sound and scent that transport you through centuries of tradition. Whether it's a towering float parading through ancient streets, a tiny lantern drifting quietly down a river, or a shared moment under a moonlit sky, festivals in Japan blur the line between the sacred and the spectacular. They are, at their heart, expressions of joy, gratitude, and the bittersweet beauty of fleeting things. Some of the grandest festivals in Japan have roots that stretch back hundreds, even over 1,000 years. Take Kyoto's Gion Matsuri, for example. Held every July, it's one of the most famous and oldest festivals in the country, dating back to the 9th century, originally organised to appease the gods during an outbreak of plague. It has evolved into a month-long celebration of art, tradition, and community spirit. The highlight of Gion Matsuri is the grand parade of floats known as Yamaboko Junko. These floats, some as tall as 8 metres and weighing several tons, are pulled through Kyoto's narrow streets by teams of men in traditional dress, adorned with rich fabrics, gold leaf, and wooden carvings. Each float represents a different neighbourhood and tells a different story. Some mythical, others historical. They creak and sway as they turn corners, accompanied by flute music, rhythmic chants, and the occasional nervous gasp from the crowd as the massive structures narrowly miss a street lamp. But Gion isn't just a parade. It's also about the Yoyama evenings leading up to the main event, when streets are closed to traffic, food stalls open, and families stroll together under strings of paper lanterns. You'll smell grilled yakitori and sweet roasted corn, hear traditional music echoing between wooden houses, and see young couples in yukata, their hands full of candied apples and fried noodles. It's like stepping into a living ukiyo-e print. Further north, in Aomori, another visual feast takes shape every August during the Nebuta Matsuri. This one is louder, brighter, and wilder. At the heart of the celebration are the Nebuta, gigantic illuminated floats depicting warriors, gods, demons, and historical scenes. Constructed from painted washi paper over wire frames and lit from within, these floats are paraded through the streets at night, their glowing forms casting dancing shadows across cheering crowds. Dancers called haneto, wearing bright costumes with bells and sashes, surround the floats, leaping and shouting "Rasera, Rasera" in rhythmic unison. Drums thunder, Flutes pierce the summer air, and the city pulses with energy. The Nabuta festival doesn't tiptoe around the idea of celebration. It charges at it head first, then invites everyone to join in. And then there's Tanabata, the Star Festival, celebrated in early July or August depending on the region. Based on a Chinese legend, it tells the tale of two celestial lovers, Orihime and Hikoboshi, who are separated by the Milky Way and allowed to meet only once a year. During Tanabata, people write wishes on colourful paper strips and hang them on bamboo branches, often alongside origami stars and cranes. The streets during Tanabata are draped in streamers, paper lanterns, and decorations shaped like stars and kimonos. Some towns, like Sendai, host elaborate Tanabata festivals with massive hanging ornaments that flutter in the wind, creating a surreal, almost underwater atmosphere. It's a festival rooted in romance and hope, in dreams tied gently to branches and fluttering in the summer breeze. Many Japanese festivals are shaped by the seasons, reflecting a deep reverence for nature's rhythms. In spring, there are picnics under cherry blossoms, known as hanami, which are informal festivals in their own right. People gather in parks, spread out blue tarps, and spend the day beneath blooming trees, laughing, eating, and occasionally sighing at how the petals fall like pink snow. The blossoms never last long, and that's the point. Their brief, breathtaking appearance reminds everyone to cherish the moment, because nothing is forever. In autumn, the focus shifts to momojigari, or leaf peeping, where people travel to view the fiery red and gold foliage. But seasonal festivals aren't just about looking, they're about participating. In September, the Tsukimi or Moon Viewing Festival invites families to gaze at the full harvest moon, eat tsukimi dango rice dumplings, and decorate with pampas grass. It's a quiet celebration, often held on balconies or in gardens, where the moon is admired not for its brightness, but for its calm presence. In Japan, even the sky gets a holiday. And when summer arrives, it brings with it fireworks, hanabi, which literally means flower fire. Unlike Western fireworks that crescendo into patriotic finales, Japanese fireworks displays are artful, deliberate, and often lasting over an hour. They bloom in perfect circles, spiral like chrysanthemums, or mimic waterfalls pouring from the sky. Some shows are choreographed to music, turning the night sky into a canvas of light and sound. People gather early, lay out picnic blankets, and watch in near silence, broken only by the occasional gasp or whispered "sugoi," amazing. Lantern festivals are another luminous tradition, offering a softer, more reflective kind of beauty. In events like the Toro Nagashi, lanterns are floated down rivers to honour ancestors and carry away the spirits of the departed. These gentle ceremonies often follow Obon, a summer festival where families welcome the souls of their ancestors back home. They clean graves, light incense, and dance in bonodori circles, their movements simple and hypnotic. It's not a mournful time, but a celebration of memory, of connection that spans beyond life. Food is woven into every celebration, often in forms that are specific to each event or region. During Gion Matsuri, vendors sell kakigori, shaved ice drenched in sweet syrup, to combat Kyoto's midsummer heat. At Tanabata, you might find star-shaped jellies or colourful somen noodles. Obon brings out traditional dishes like chirashi sushi, scattered sushi topped with vegetables and egg, meant to be shared. And of course, every festival has its own version of street food paradise: takoyaki, taiyaki, okonomiyaki, grilled squid, and more, sizzling on open grills and handed over in paper trays still too hot to hold. The smells alone are enough to make your stomach perform cartwheels. Soy sauce caramelizing on skewers, sweet red bean paste tucked into warm pastries, charcoal smoke rising into the night. But more than the food itself, it's the communal joy of eating outdoors, under lanterns and stars, that makes it feel magical. Many of these festivals also involve elaborate dress. People don yukata, lightweight cotton kimono in summer patterns, fireworks, goldfish, morning glories, and clip small ornaments into their hair. Children wear festival masks shaped like foxes or characters from old folk tales. The atmosphere is playful, nostalgic, and a little otherworldly. Even if you have never worn traditional clothing before, slipping into a yukata seems to change the way you move, the way you perceive time. Everything slows down just a little. One of the more unique festivals takes place in winter. In the town of Yokote in Akita Prefecture, people build kamakura, snow huts, during the annual Kamakura Festival. Inside, candles flicker and children invite passers-by in for warm rice cakes and sweet sake. Hundreds of these glowing igloos line the snowy streets, transforming the town into a fairy tale village. It's a celebration of hospitality, warmth, and community in the coldest part of the year. Then there's the Fertility Festival in Kawasaki, where participants carry a giant, let's call it a symbolic sculpture, through the streets with great fanfare. It's cheeky, joyful, and rooted in ancient rituals of blessing crops and ensuring good fortune. The festival has become a symbol of openness and inclusivity, attracting locals and tourists alike with its blend of humour and heritage. What's striking about Japanese festivals is their deep duality. On one hand, they're vibrant, noisy, and packed with fun. On the other, they are profoundly poetic, built on centuries of seasonal awareness, spiritual reflection, and artistic expression. You're never just watching a float or lighting a lantern. You're participating in a dance between time and timelessness. There is also a particular sense of reverence for impermanence that weaves through them all. Whether it's the brief bloom of cherry blossoms, the single night of fireworks, or a paper lantern floating gently away, festivals remind people to embrace the now. Beauty isn't preserved in a frame, it's created, shared, and let go. It's a firework, not a monument. And perhaps that's what makes these festivals so unforgettable. They are not static traditions, they are living memories. Passed down, reinterpreted, and lovingly maintained, they give shape to the seasons and rhythm to the year. They invite everyone, locals, visitors, young, old, to pause, celebrate, and marvel together. In the end, a Japanese festival is more than the sum of its drums, dances, lanterns, and snacks. It's a fleeting, glowing reminder that even as the world changes, there will always be time to gather, to laugh, to honour the past, and to watch something beautiful rise and disappear into the night sky. Japan is a land where nature doesn't just surround life, it breathes alongside it. Mountains cradle villages, forests whisper ancient secrets, and rivers carve poems into the earth. From the misty peaks of the north to the coral reefs of the southern islands, Japan is a tapestry of creatures and landscapes so diverse and vivid that even its myths have trouble keeping up. It's a place where animals soak in hot springs, cherry blossoms fall like snow, and the presence of the wild is never far from the everyday. Let's start in the cold, mountainous regions of Nagano, where a very particular group of locals have become icons in their own right. The snow monkeys of Jigokudani. Officially known as Japanese macaques, these clever primates are famous for one rather unexpected habit: they bathe in hot springs. During winter, when snow piles up in thick blankets and icicles hang from the trees, these monkeys descend into natural onsen, their red faces calm, their expressions oddly human. With steam curling around them and snow falling gently on their fur, they sit, eyes half closed, like little sages enjoying a well-earned soak. Scientists say they do it to stay warm. Observers suspect they do it for the vibes. Far from the snowy mountains, in Japan's wetlands and rice paddies, another creature captures the imagination: the crane. Graceful and elegant, red-crowned cranes have long been symbols of longevity, luck, and fidelity in Japanese culture. They appear in folk tales, art, and origami, and 1,000 paper cranes, or sembazuru, is a traditional offering for peace and healing. These birds mate for life and dance elaborate courtship routines that seem like ballet performed on stilts. Seeing them wading through a misty rice field or lifting off with slow, powerful wings is like watching a brushstroke come to life. But the animals of Japan don't just reside in the forests and fields. They also live in the collective imagination. This is a country where mythological creatures share headspace with real ones, where a fox might be more than a fox, and where the line between the natural and the supernatural is pleasingly blurry. The dragon in Japanese folklore is not the fire-breathing menace of Western tales, but a guardian of water, wisdom, and wind. With long, serpentine bodies and a look of eternal dignity, Japanese dragons are said to control rivers and rain, often residing in deep lakes or atop sacred peaks. They're powerful, but not evil. In temples and shrines, you'll often see dragon spouts over stone basins, offering water for purification, an ancient nod to their protective role. Then there are the Tengu, strange mountain spirits often depicted with red faces, wild hair, and very prominent noses. Some versions show them with wings and beaks, others with human features and a touch of mischief. Tengu are guardians of forests, but are known for testing arrogant travellers, tricking those who stray from the path. Think of them as woodland curators with a slightly chaotic streak. And no mention of Japanese folklore would be complete without the tanuki. Often translated as raccoon dogs, real tanuki are indeed a native species, fuzzy, round-bellied, and adorably scruffy. But the mythical version? Well, he's a different story entirely, shape-shifting, sake-drinking, mischief-making, and usually carrying a giant belly and an even more enormous sense of humour. Statues of tanuki, with wide eyes and friendly grins, can be found outside restaurants and shops, said to bring prosperity and good luck, usually while causing a bit of playful trouble along the way. These creatures, whether real or imagined, speak to something deeper in the Japanese relationship with the natural world. It's not a thing to be conquered or tamed. It's something to be respected, even befriended. Nature is alive with spirits, stories, and small lessons, often delivered with a wink. And standing tall above it all, both physically and spiritually, is Mount Fuji. Japan's most iconic peak rises in perfect symmetry, its snowy cap a quiet crown visible from as far as Tokyo on a clear day. Fuji is not just a mountain, it's a symbol of endurance, of solitude, of artistic inspiration. It's been painted by Hokusai, written about by Basho, and climbed by pilgrims and tourists alike for centuries. Despite being an active volcano, Fuji feels serene, almost impossibly composed. The climb to its summit is a kind of rite of passage, and those who reach the top in time for sunrise speak of it with the quiet awe usually reserved for temples. A wise man climbs Fuji once, a local proverb goes, but only a fool climbs it twice. The journey is long, the air thin, the reward immense. Surrounding Fuji and throughout the country are vast cedar forests, some of which are home to trees over 1,000 years old. In Yakushima, a subtropical island off the southern coast of Kyushu, ancient cedar trees grow in tangled, moss-covered groves, cloaked in mist and mystery. The Jomonsugi, one of the oldest and largest of these trees, may be over 7,000 years old. Walking through these forests feels like stepping into a forgotten world, one that inspired the lush, enchanted landscapes of Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke. But Japan's natural beauty isn't confined to its mountains and forests. Head south, and you'll find coral reefs blooming beneath the clear waters of Okinawa. These tropical islands, with their turquoise seas and gentle rhythm of life, offer a completely different face of Japan. The coral reefs are home to clownfish, sea turtles, and a kaleidoscope of other marine creatures. And snorkeling or diving here is like swimming through a living watercolour painting. On land, seasonal flowers bloom in careful succession, turning parks and gardens into moving tapestries of colour. Spring, of course, belongs to the cherry blossom. The sakura bloom for just a week or two each year, drawing millions of people into parks for hanami, flower viewing picnics filled with food, laughter, and the occasional existential reflection on how everything ends too soon. The blossoms fall quickly, like pink confetti, and then they're gone. But that, of course, is the point. Their beauty is inseparable from their brevity. Summer brings irises, rising tall in elegant rows beside streams and temple ponds. Their purple and blue petals fan out like folded silk, striking against the rich greens of early summer. In autumn, it's time for the kiku, or chrysanthemum, a flower of deep symbolic meaning, representing longevity, loyalty, and imperial dignity. Chrysanthemums are meticulously cultivated, shaped into intricate displays, and even worn as emblems of the Japanese throne. And in winter, just when you think nature has gone quiet, the uma blossoms appear, plum flowers that bloom even before the last snow has melted. These delicate pink and white blossoms are less famous than their cherry cousins, but just as poetic, symbolising resilience and renewal. They don't wait for warmth, they bloom through it. Flower festivals across the country celebrate these seasonal stars. Fields of lavender in Hokkaido, tulip parks in Toyama, wisteria tunnels in Tochigi. The Japanese attention to detail extends to nature as well, with entire gardens designed to be appreciated one flower at a time, one angle at a time. A garden isn't just a place, it's a moving meditation. And yet, even the humblest corner of Japan holds natural beauty. A rice field shimmering in the afternoon sun, a dragonfly landing on a bamboo fence, a frog croaking in a roadside ditch after rain. Nature is not pushed out of sight. It's invited in, even in the heart of the city. Tiny balcony gardens, rooftop beehives, bonsai trees on apartment windowsills. These quiet gestures remind you that the wild is never far away. There's a Japanese word Satoyama, that describes the border zone between cultivated land and wild nature. It's not wilderness, and it's not farmland, but a meeting place where humans and nature coexist. Paths through cedar groves, tea fields lining the hills, fireflies flickering above rice paddies. These are all part of Satoyama. It's a landscape shaped by hand, but still wild at heart. In Japan, the natural world isn't separate from culture. It's culture. It's written into the stories, carved into the shrines, sung in the folk songs, and folded into daily life like petals into tea. Whether it's a snow monkey closing its eyes in a hot spring, a tanuki statue grinning at the door of a noodle shop, or a single plum blossom blooming against a grey winter sky, there is always something quietly miraculous just waiting to be noticed. The beasts and blossoms of Japan are more than scenery. They are characters, companions, and sometimes gentle teachers, reminding us that beauty is often shy, that magic is often mischievous, and that everything precious in the end must change. Modern Japan is a country that somehow feels like the future and the past coexisting in the same moment, often on the same street. Step off a bullet train in Tokyo, and you'll see what looks like a science fiction skyline. Glass towers reflecting neon lights, digital billboards the size of buildings, vending machines that can sell you everything from hot corn soup to neckties. But take a turn down a quiet back street in Kyoto, and the scene changes completely. Wooden houses line narrow alleys, paper lanterns glow softly, and the distant sound of a temple bell marks the passing of time, just as it has for centuries. This is Japan's modern tapestry, a weave of opposites that somehow fits together. It's fast and slow, loud and quiet, shiny and weathered, and it works, often in ways that feel surprisingly harmonious. Nowhere is this contrast more vivid than in Tokyo, a city that hums with energy at all hours. It's home to more than 37 million people, making it one of the most populous metropolitan areas in the world, yet it rarely feels chaotic. The trains run on time, down to the second. Pedestrians navigate crowded crossings with ballet-like efficiency, and there's a kind of unspoken agreement to keep things orderly even when the city is buzzing. Neighbourhoods in Tokyo are like miniature worlds, each with its own personality. Shibuya is known for its famous scramble crossing, where hundreds of people move across the intersection from all directions every few minutes in a strangely graceful choreography. In nearby Harajuku, fashion reigns supreme. On weekends, the sidewalks turn into a living catwalk of subcultures. Lolita dresses trimmed with lace, cyberpunk ensembles glowing with LED strips, minimalist chic, and punk rock rebellion, all coexisting within a few meters of each other. Not far away is Akihabara, a district devoted to electronics, anime, and gaming. Here, multi-story arcades pulse with sound and light, maid cafes offer elaborate fantasy experiences, and collectors browse for rare figurines and retro consoles. It's a place where digital dreams run wild, where nostalgia and futurism hold hands. And yet, among all the screen glow and concrete, there are pockets of peace. Hidden shrines with stone foxes. Small ramen shops with only 6 stools and a curtain over the door. A park bench under cherry trees where someone has paused with a bento box and a paperback. Tokyo might sprint at full speed, but it also remembers to breathe. Meanwhile, Kyoto moves at a different rhythm altogether. As the former imperial capital, it holds deep roots in tradition. While it has modern infrastructure and convenience like any Japanese city, its charm lies in its restraint. Wooden machiya townhouses, stone-paved alleys, and moss-covered temple gardens are all part of daily scenery. You're more likely to hear the tap of getter sandals on a quiet street than the buzz of an electric scooter. In Kyoto, modernity peeks through subtly. There might be a sushi bar run by robots, or a tea house accepting contactless payment, but always with a touch of grace. It's a place where even innovation bows politely to the past. One of the most delightful quirks of modern Japan is its obsession with convenience. The country has mastered the art of making life easier, often in ways that feel both charming and absurdly efficient. Need a coffee, an umbrella, a can of hot noodles, a cold beer, or a new pair of socks? Just find the nearest vending machine. There are over 4 million of them across the country, tucked into alleyways, train platforms, and mountain trails. They rarely malfunction. They're always stocked, and some even talk to you. Convenience stores, konbini, are another marvel. Open 24 hours a day, these shops are small but mighty. Inside, you'll find neatly packaged meals that rival restaurant fare, seasonal snacks, bill-paying services, copy machines, toiletries, and even emergency neckties. Staff greet customers with a cheerful "irashaimais," and everything runs like a well-oiled machine. It's no wonder many travellers develop a strange attachment to their neighbourhood konbini. Technology is deeply embedded in everyday life, but not in the flashy, cold way often imagined in futuristic cities. It's more like an invisible butler, always there but never obtrusive. Toilets come with control panels that rival those in small aircraft. Hotel rooms adjust lighting with the wave of a hand. Even humble rice cookers sing a little tune when the rice is ready. Robots assist with check-ins. Holograms greet customers in shops. And bullet trains glide across the countryside so smoothly that your tea barely ripples. But amid the dazzle of automation, there's a growing awareness of digital solitude. Many people in Japan live alone, not just physically, but emotionally. The term hikikomori describes individuals who withdraw from social life entirely, sometimes for years. In urban centres, there are cafes where you can pay for the silent company of a stranger, and capsule hotels that provide tiny private spaces for those who need rest without interaction. Capsule hotels are one of Japan's more unique accommodations. Rows of small sleeping pods stacked like beehives, each with just enough room for one person to sleep and sit up. They're often used by business travellers, budget tourists, or people who've missed the last train home. Inside, there's a strange coziness. Soft lighting, privacy screens, and built-in TVs. They reflect a wider cultural tendency toward efficiency and respect for personal space. The balance between togetherness and solitude is complex. Japan's work culture, for example, is famously demanding. Long hours, group loyalty, and social hierarchy can create intense pressure. There's even a word, karoshi, that means death from overwork. But there's also a growing movement toward work-life balance, flexible hours, and mental health awareness. Co-working spaces with nap rooms, nature soundscapes, and shared tea breaks are popping up in cities across the country. Despite these pressures, or perhaps because of them, creativity thrives. Youth culture in Japan is endlessly inventive, constantly remixing global trends with local flavour. You'll find punk bands in basement venues, street artists painting murals in Osaka alleys, Fashion designers in Sendai reimagining kimono patterns with modern cuts. There's a kind of playful defiance in it all, a refusal to be boxed in by tradition or global expectations. This spirit is especially visible in places like Shimokitazawa, a Tokyo neighbourhood that feels like a mashup of thrift shops, tiny record stores, vintage cafes, and indie theatres. It's a haven for students, musicians, artists, and anyone marching to their own beat. Walk down a side street and you might find a bar that seats only 5 people, a jazz trio rehearsing above a noodle shop, or a bookstore dedicated entirely to illustrated zines. Modern Japan is full of these quiet rebellions, places and people gently pushing back against conformity, not with confrontation, but with creativity. And yet, underneath all this innovation, there remains a deep current of cultural continuity. Shinto shrines still receive visitors offering coins and wishes. Children still learn kanji by hand. The cherry blossom forecasts still matter. Even the most cutting-edge tech is often shaped with respect for aesthetics, balance and harmony. This fusion of old and new can be found in architecture too. Skyscrapers in Tokyo are built to withstand earthquakes and look like futuristic art installations, but you'll often find a tiny shrine preserved at their base, tucked between glass and concrete. In residential neighbourhoods, sleek apartment buildings stand beside lovingly maintained wooden homes with flower pots and wind chimes on the porch. Everywhere, this layering of eras continues. A robot delivers your ramen at a restaurant where the walls are decorated with Edo period prints. A teenager live streams their karaoke performance while wearing a kimono. A businessman prays at a shrine before heading into a skyscraper for a board meeting. Japan doesn't erase the past to make way for the future. It weaves both together, strand by strand, into something entirely its own. This modern tapestry is not seamless. There are contradictions, frictions and gaps. But it's precisely those threads, tightly woven and yet a little uneven, that make the picture so rich. It's a place where digital vending machines sell lucky charms, where the world's fastest trains pass rice fields that haven't changed in centuries, where you can lose yourself in neon lights, then find yourself again in the quiet of a tatami room. In the end, Japan's modern identity isn't a clean break from tradition. It's a kaleidoscope, a shimmering, shifting pattern made of screens and silk, concrete and cedar, emojis and ink brush strokes. And in that swirl of images, in that unrepeatable combination of the ancient and the futuristic, something deeply human continues to shine. Japan may be a single country, but it feels more like a mosaic of mini worlds, each tile vibrant in its own right, linked by shared history and language, yet distinct in flavour, rhythm, and colour. From the frozen stillness of Hokkaido to the coral-kissed beaches of Okinawa, the nation stretches across climates, cultures, and cuisines, offering endless surprises to those curious enough to wander. Travel a few hours by train, and you might hear a new dialect, discover a new favourite dish, or find that even the laughter sounds just a little different. Let's begin in the far north with Hokkaido, a land of snow, wide skies, and breathtaking quiet. Known for its dramatic winters, this island is famous for heavy snowfall, frozen lakes, and the kind of clean, crisp air that makes you involuntarily breathe a little deeper. In February, the city of Sapporo transforms into a glimmering dreamscape during the snow festival, with towering ice sculptures and entire palaces carved from snow. skiers and snowboarders from around the world flock to resorts like Niseko, drawn by powdery slopes and après-ski hot springs. But Hokkaido isn't just a winter wonderland. In spring and summer, fields of lavender bloom in Furano, turning the hills into seas of purple, while national parks like Daisetsuzan offer rugged hikes through volcanic landscapes. Hokkaido's food, shaped by its colder climate and proximity to the sea, leans rich and hearty. Creamy corn butter ramen, fresh crab, and thick cut of grilled lamb known as jingisukan, named after Genghis Khan for reasons that remain deliciously unclear. Heading south, the scenery changes, and so does the personality. The Kanto region, home to Tokyo and its surrounding prefectures, carries a quiet urban composure. People here are often described as polite, punctual, and just a touch reserved. That's not to say they lack warmth. It's simply a more subtle, buttoned-up kind of expression. In conversations, you might notice fewer flourishes, more pauses. There's a certain elegance to the restraint. In contrast, head to Kansai, home to cities like Osaka, Kyoto, and Kobe, and you'll likely notice the volume notch up. Kansai is famous for its humour, hospitality, and flair. The regional dialect, Kansai Ben, has a bouncy, expressive rhythm, and comedians from this region dominate Japanese entertainment. In Osaka especially, the cultural mantra seems to be fun first. Locals here are known for their love of food, laughter, and the ability to turn even small talk into stand-up. Food in Kansai reflects this warmth and energy. Osaka proudly claims itself as Japan's kitchen, and for good reason. It's the birthplace of okonomiyaki, a savoury pancake made with cabbage, meat or seafood, and topped with sweet sauce, mayonnaise, and bonito flakes that dance in the steam. There's also takoyaki, delicious little octopus-filled spheres that are crisp on the outside, gooey in the middle, and absolutely addictive. Street food here is a cultural treasure, and eating while walking, normally frowned upon elsewhere in Japan, is not only tolerated but encouraged at markets like Kuromon Ichiba. Travel west to Hiroshima, and you'll encounter a different take on okonomiyaki entirely. Hiroshima style layers the ingredients: noodle, batter, cabbage, pork, stacked rather than mixed, each bite a perfect cross-section of textures. It's a small culinary difference that sparks endless debate, often friendly, sometimes passionate. But that's the beauty of Japan's regional food. It's not just about flavour, it's about identity. Keep moving and you'll find yourself in Nagoya, a city that doesn't always make the tourist itineraries, but absolutely should. The cuisine here is rich, bold, and proudly unique. There's miso katsu, a deep-fried pork cutlet smothered in thick, dark miso sauce. Tebasaki chicken wings that are peppery, sweet, and impossible to eat just one of. And hitsumabushi, a grilled eel dish served with 3 distinct eating methods in one meal, first on its own, then with condiments, and finally mixed with broth for a kind of savoury, smoky soup. It's not just a meal, it's an experience with instructions. In the mountainous Tohoku region, where winters are long and traditions run deep, food takes on a heartier, more rustic quality. Buckwheat soba noodles are a regional staple, often served cold with a dipping sauce or hot in broth. The flavours here tend to be earthy and understated, perfect for the snow-covered villages and quiet temples that dot the landscape. Tohoku is known for its resilience, having endured harsh climates and natural disasters with grace, and that quiet strength is reflected in its culture. The local dialects in each of these regions are not just accents, but entirely different linguistic landscapes. In Okinawa, for example, the native Ryukyuan languages are so distinct from Standard Japanese that they're classified as their own branch of the Japonic language family. Though these dialects are fading, efforts to preserve them are growing, with language classes, radio programs, and even pop songs keeping the regional voices alive. In northern Japan, Tohoku dialects are famously difficult for outsiders, even native Japanese speakers, to understand. The words are slower, more drawn out, with soft syllables and deeply local vocabulary. In Kyoto, the dialect is elegant and nuanced, often employing indirect language and layered meanings. A phrase that sounds like a compliment may in fact be a gentle critique, delivered with such grace that it feels like a gift. In contrast, the Osaka dialect is straightforward, warm, and full of humour. Here, a quick-witted comeback is considered a social skill, almost an art form. Architecture, too, shifts as you travel. In Okinawa, traditional homes are built low to the ground with wide, tiled roofs designed to withstand typhoons. Guardian lion dogs called shisa perch on gates and rooftops, warding off bad spirits. In contrast, the thatched farmhouses of Shirakawa-go in the Japanese Alps are built with steep, triangular roofs to shed heavy snow. The design, called Gasho Zukuri, means hands in prayer, a nod to both the shape of the roof and the spiritual sense embedded in the structure. In cities like Kanazawa, wooden lattice storefronts and narrow alleys evoke Edo-era charm, while in Fukuoka, sleek shopping malls rise alongside bustling food stalls. Each city, each town, feels like a world unto itself, with its own pace, accent, and set of rules. Even the festivals change with geography. In Aomori's Nebuta Matsuri, illuminated warrior floats are paraded through the streets in a fiery summer celebration. In Kyoto's Gion Matsuri, the atmosphere is elegant and ceremonial, with intricately crafted floats and centuries-old rituals. In Okinawa, the Asa festival fills the night with drumming, dancing, and songs honouring ancestors. Each celebration carries the DNA of its region, its history, its spirit, its dreams. And then there are the things that don't fit neatly into maps. The unspoken pride of locals when a visitor tries the dialect. The fierce debate over whether Kanto or Kansai-style udon is superior. Hint, both are delicious. The sense of belonging that comes from biting into a childhood snack that's only sold in your prefecture. These are the colours that don't show up in guidebooks, but give the national tapestry its warmth. Japan's diversity is sometimes overlooked beneath the surface of national unity, but it's there, quietly pulsing beneath the surface. Every region is a character, with its own moods, habits, and humour. It's a country made not of sameness, but of harmony, where snowy mountains and subtropical beaches, ancient rituals and pop culture cafes coexist without cancelling each other out. From Hokkaido's snowfields to Okinawa's turquoise waves, from Osaka's jokes to Tokyo's polished quiet, Japan invites exploration not just across distance, but across ways of seeing the world. It's a home of many colours, and in every corner, if you look closely enough, you'll find a story waiting to be told. In Japan, the future doesn't arrive by sweeping away the past. It arrives quietly, like mist over a garden, touching old stones with something new. It hums beneath temple roofs, glows behind ancient calligraphy, and floats in the spaces where memory and ambition overlap. Here, the past is never truly past. It is kept, curated, respected, and the future is not a neon blast. It's a continuation, folded gently into the fabric of things already known. To understand this balance, one might begin with silence. Not the silence of absence, but the kind found in places like Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Park. This is where the echoes of history are loudest, not in sound, but in presence. The Genbaku Dome, once the Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall, stands as a skeletal outline against the sky, a ruin preserved exactly as it was after the atomic bomb dropped on August 6, 1945. Its exposed bricks and twisted metal are stark reminders of devastation, yet they speak quietly, without spectacle. Nearby, the Peace Memorial Museum presents the events of that day and its aftermath with sobering clarity. Exhibits include watches stopped at 8:15, melted glass bottles, and photographs that refuse to soften the truth. But rather than fostering bitterness, the museum offers a call to reflection and peace. It is not a monument to war. It is a promise not to repeat it. School children leave folded cranes in honor of Sadako Sasaki, a young girl who died from radiation illness and who famously folded paper cranes while she hoped for recovery. Her story has become a symbol of hope, reminding visitors that from the darkest moments can come quiet, persistent light. Nagasaki, too, carries this echo. Its own atomic bomb museum is equally moving, and its Peace Park features sculptures donated from around the world, each offering a vision of peace in a shared global language. Together, these cities are guardians of memory, places where past pain is transformed into a forward-looking promise. But Japan's preservation efforts go far beyond memorials. They stretch into the rhythm of daily life, into the art and rituals that continue with reverence, generation after generation. In Kyoto's Gion district, you might catch a glimpse of a geisha, called geiko in the Kyoto dialect, stepping quietly through twilight in her wooden sandals, her face painted like porcelain, her kimono whispering as she walks. It's not a performance for tourists. It's a way of life, centuries old, carried on by women who train for years in music, dance, etiquette, and subtle conversation. Their presence is not a reenactment. It's a living continuation. Kabuki theatre, too, endures with style and thunder. With elaborate costumes, stylized gestures, and actors who slide dramatically across the stage in poses frozen for emphasis, Kabuki is a spectacle that blends drama with pageantry. While it may look extravagant, every detail, from makeup patterns to curtain pulls, has a meaning. Modern kabuki performances sometimes add new elements, like subtle digital backdrops or LED lighting, but the heart of the art remains unchanged. Its tradition, yes, but not static. It evolves inch by inch while honouring its roots. Craftsmanship is another way the past remains tangible. In small villages and urban workshops alike, artisans continue to create by hand what machines could easily mass produce: ceramics, paper, swords, textiles. The techniques they use are often unchanged for centuries, passed down from master to apprentice in quiet, focused studios. There's even a national recognition for such dedication. Living national treasures, individuals officially designated as preservers of important cultural heritage. Whether they're dyeing kimono silk with indigo, forging blades with folded steel, or weaving bamboo into intricate baskets, these artisans carry stories in their fingertips. This reverence for the handmade does not reject the new. It sits comfortably alongside it. Japan is a place where a centuries-old tea house might be located down the street from a robot cafe. In Tokyo, you can step into a Shinto shrine and then emerge to find a driverless bus waiting at the curb. Innovation here doesn't always look flashy. It often arrives gently, folded into the ordinary. Artificial intelligence is already making subtle changes in daily life. Smart assistants help farmers monitor rice fields, while robots greet hotel guests and carry luggage in airport terminals. In care homes, robotic pets provide comfort and companionship to the elderly, responding to touch and voice with gentle purring or cheerful blinking. In schools, AI tools are used to personalise learning, adjusting material to suit individual needs. These aren't dystopian futures. They're practical, thoughtful applications designed to support rather than replace human connection. Japan's space ambitions are also on the rise. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, has achieved remarkable successes, including the Hayabusa missions, which returned samples from distant asteroids, delicate packages of stardust sent back across millions of kilometres. Plans are in place for more lunar exploration, Martian research, and partnerships with international space programs. These efforts are driven not by bravado, but by a quiet confidence in perseverance, precision, and the long game. Even in environmental technology, Japan is quietly at the forefront. Cities like Toyota and Fujisawa are testing smart neighbourhoods powered by renewable energy, with homes designed to generate more electricity than they consume. High-speed rail systems like the Shinkansen are already some of the most efficient in the world, but engineers continue to push for quieter, faster, greener models. Waste management systems operate with near surgical efficiency, and in many communities, trash is sorted into more than a dozen categories for proper recycling and reuse. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress, step by deliberate step. This thread of ambition, however, doesn't unravel the thread of nostalgia. In fact, they're often intertwined. Take, for example, Japan's love of analog technology. Vinyl records, cassette tapes, and even flip phones maintain small but passionate followings. Not out of stubbornness, but affection. For the tactile, the imperfect, the familiar weight of something in the hand. Old things are not always discarded here. They're often repurposed, revered, or quietly cherished. In literature and film, this blend of old and new is everywhere. Directors like Hayao Miyazaki create worlds that feel both ancient and futuristic, where flying machines glide over moss-covered ruins and spirits share space with steam engines. Writers like Haruki Murakami bend time, weaving jazz records and cat metaphors into surreal dreamscapes that are somehow deeply rooted in everyday Tokyo life. These are not stories that reject modernity, but ones that ask gently how we carry the past with us as we step forward. Even the cities themselves seem to echo with this duality. A walk through Nara brings you face to face with deer roaming freely near 8th century temples. A train ride away, you might find yourself in a digital art museum where walls shift, ripple and bloom around you, responding to your steps. It's as if the very landscape of Japan refuses to choose between what was and what will be. It simply allows them to sit side by side. This is perhaps Japan's greatest quiet skill, not merely balancing tradition and innovation, but allowing them to enrich one another. The geisha doesn't fade beneath the neon. The calligraphy brush doesn't gather dust next to the touchscreen. Instead, each reminds the other why it matters. The future has texture because it remembers where it came from. The past keeps living because it's allowed to evolve. Even in language, this interplay continues. New slang and tech terms pop up constantly, but old proverbs are still quoted in conversation. Expressions like motainai, a sense of regret over waste, remain relevant in sustainability efforts. Or mono, no, aware, the gentle sadness at the passing of things, echoed in the falling of cherry blossoms and the closing of a well-loved store. These are not quaint relics, they are still useful tools for understanding the world. So when you wander through Japan, whether digitally, mentally, or in person, you begin to feel that time is not a straight line here. It's a spiral, a garden path, a folding fan. The Peace Memorial stands because memory matters. The kabuki mask is worn because the story still speaks. The AI robot bows, not because it must, but because someone programmed it to be polite. Here, in this land of contrasts, nostalgia isn't a trap, and ambition isn't a race. They walk side by side, sometimes hand in hand. One looks back and whispers, "Remember?" The other looks forward and says, "Imagine!" And together they make something remarkably human. Outside, snow is falling in slow, thoughtful flakes. Each one drifts gently, soundlessly, until it settles on the dark, curved roof of a temple. The tiles catch the snow like open hands catching wishes, and for a moment the world becomes impossibly quiet. Not silent, just hushed, like it's holding its breath. Somewhere nearby, a bell might toll once, low and deep, echoing across the rooftops. You can almost feel it, more than hear it, like a ripple moving through air. Inside, the scent of tatami fills the room. A soft, grassy warmth, faintly sweet and earthy, grounding you in the here and now, the straw mats, perfectly laid in a pattern that balances space and symmetry, creak slightly as you shift. A ceramic teacup warms your hands. The matcha inside is deep green, slightly bitter, slightly sweet, with a frothy top that looks like cloud foam caught in a bowl. It's not just a drink, it's a moment. One that you feel from the chest, not the tongue. Japan is full of these moments. Quiet, precise, fleeting. They aren't shouted about or packaged in neon. You simply notice them if you're paying attention. A wind chime outside a window clinks softly as the air moves. A paper lantern sways gently in a doorway. The last train hums into the station, its lights glowing like a moving constellation. And you realise that life here doesn't always move forward in straight lines. Sometimes it circles, sometimes it folds, sometimes it just pauses, gracefully. As the night deepens, the soft details rise to the surface. You might hear the rustle of bamboo leaves brushing against one another, or the distant laugh of someone finishing dinner in an izakaya down the alley. A fox might dart across a rural path. A cicada's song may have gone quiet, replaced by the gentle scratch of snowfall. It's in these nighttime stillnesses that Japan feels most like itself. Not performing, just being. There's a lullaby to it all, though you may never hear the words. It's woven into the architecture of old wooden houses, into the rhythm of temple rituals, into the low notes of a koto played behind a paper screen. It says, "Rest and be here now." Don't worry that it won't last. Of course it won't. That's what makes it precious. Japan, perhaps more than any other place, teaches this lesson quietly and consistently. Beauty is fleeting. The most wonderful things bloom and fall, appear and vanish. And in their impermanence, They become more meaningful, not less. A cherry blossom that falls too quickly. A summer firework that vanishes before you can take a photo. A passing kindness from a stranger you'll never meet again. These are not losses, they are gifts. This way of seeing the world has a name: mono-no-aware. It's the bittersweet awareness of impermanence and the deep emotional response it stirs. It doesn't try to stop time. It simply holds it gently for as long as it can and lets it go with grace. That's the rhythm of Japan. Not static, not racing, but breathing. A temple gate that has stood for centuries and still welcomes visitors one by one. A farmer who plants the same rice field as her grandmother, with different tools but the same careful hands. A neon-lit city that never sleeps and still stops to admire the moon. Change and continuity dancing together, not in competition, but in conversation. Even the simplest things feel infused with this awareness. A meal arranged not just for taste, but for season, colour, and shape. A doorway designed to reveal the garden just so, as you enter. A shopkeeper bowing as you leave, even if you bought nothing. It's not about formality, it's about presence. About treating each moment as if it matters, because it does. And so, as our journey comes to rest, it's not with a flourish, but with a breath. A final sip of tea, cooling slightly in the cup. A folded futon, a soft pillow. A window cracked just enough to let in the scent of pine. The sky may still be streaked with the glow of a city far away, but here, now, there is quiet. Somewhere, an old record might be playing. Something slow and full of strings. Someone's cat curls into a circle on a warm cushion. A train hums in the distance, carrying night owls home across the glowing veins of the city. And as you listen, as you breathe it all in, you might feel a kind of stillness settle over you. Not sleep, not quite, but the peace that comes just before it. That threshold moment when you're not sure if you're still here or already dreaming. That lovely slow drift between now and next. Let it carry you, like petals in spring wind. Let it take you gently without hurry. Because Japan is not a place that insists. It invites. It opens the door and lets you decide when to step through. So take your time, and when you finally close your eyes, may you hear the wind chimes still echoing. May you feel the hush of snowfall on temple roofs. May you remember the scent of tatami, the taste of warm tea, the sound of soft laughter beneath lantern light. And may you drift away like cherry blossoms in the wind. In Japan, time doesn't just pass. It flows. It moves like water over smooth stones, carving memory into the landscape, not in great leaps, but in quiet, deliberate moments. Here, the rhythm of life is not dictated by the ticking of clocks or the sprint of progress, but by the seasons, subtle, steady, and deeply felt. Spring doesn't just mean warmer weather. It means the bloom of cherry blossoms, the scent of fresh earth, the rustle of picnic tarps under trees. Summer hums with cicadas and the crackle of fireworks over rivers. Autumn comes with the rustle of red maple leaves and the scent of roasted chestnuts. Winter settles in like a sigh, cloaking temples and rooftops in soft snow, inviting stillness. This dance with the seasons is not background decoration. It's central to the Japanese way of seeing the world. There is reverence for change, even when it brings endings. There is comfort in knowing that what fades will return, not the same, but again renewed. And in between, There is beauty not just in what is seen, but in what is felt. A breeze through a bamboo grove, the hush of snowfall, the distant toll of a bell you can't quite place. Across this journey, from the snow monkeys of the north to the coral reefs of the south, from kimonos and kabuki to bullet trains and vending machines, we've seen how Japan holds contradiction without conflict. It is old and new, fast and slow, precise and poetic. It's a place where shrines sit beside skyscrapers, where the future bows politely to the past, and where every cup of tea, every cherry blossom, every hand-folded crane seems to ask us to pause and pay attention. At the heart of it all is balance, not the kind that demands perfection, but the kind that invites harmony. In nature, in culture, in daily ritual, there is a deep-rooted awareness of the interconnectedness of things. Mountains are not just landforms, they're deities. Rivers are not just water, they're lifelines. A bowl of soup is not just lunch. It's a reflection of the season, the region, the hands that prepared it. Nothing is wasted, nothing is rushed. This mindfulness stretches into space too. Rooms are designed not to be filled, but to breathe. Paths curve gently to slow the walker. Gardens are made not for display, but for contemplation. Even the placement of a stone or the bend of a pine tree carries intention. There's wisdom in the empty spaces, the pauses between sounds, the silence that wraps around a temple bell after it rings. And perhaps that's one of the greatest gifts Japan offers, not just to its visitors, but to anyone willing to look closely. The gift of stillness. In a world that often values speed and noise and endless motion, Japan reminds us that peace can be found in slowness, in doing one thing at a time, in noticing, in being rather than becoming. As we come to the end of this journey, let us hold that stillness gently. Let it settle like evening light across a garden path. Let it remind us that beauty is not always grand or loud. It's often found in the most fleeting things. A paper lantern swaying in the breeze. The scent of incense. The sound of rain on a roof made of cedar and memory. Thank you for travelling through the seasons of Japan, for walking its paths, tasting its flavours, hearing its songs, and feeling its rhythms. Whether you listened with your eyes closed in a dark room, or followed along from halfway across the world, I hope these stories brought you a sense of wonder, of calm, and maybe even a quiet smile. Before we part, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from tonight? What time is it where you are now? Let me know in the comments below. And if this journey brought you peace, curiosity, or even just a moment of stillness, I'd be honoured if you left a like or gently tapped that subscribe button so we can wander again together. I hope the video didn't keep you too awake, but if it did, at least you might have learned something along the way. Now, as you drift towards sleep, may your dreams carry you to moonlit temples, misty forests, quiet villages, and lantern-lit streets. May you hear the soft rustle of bamboo leaves, the lull of distant waves, and the gentle chime of bells calling you home. Good night, and until next time, rest well, traveller.